Hey guys and welcome back to my channel. This is part 5 of What If Naruto was in Cyberpunk 2077. Before we begin, don't forget to like, share and subscribe, and also go and support the author, link in description. Sitting at the terminal in their apartment, Gloria busied herself with making sure the bills were covered, checking her messages to ensure building management sent her a confirmation so that the greedy gonks couldn't try to pull a fast one. Most of it she could do with her eyes closed, having done this for years, so when nothing looked off she let her mind wander. Usually about work or her newest acquisition, while on the job, but none of that came to mind at the moment. The only thing she caught herself thinking about was her strange new neighbor. Uzumaki Naruto. He was different, not just with his clothing choice but the way he treated people. David mentioned that he helped folks, that he was the one changing things around the mega building for the better, but seeing him earlier today just put it all into perspective. Their date had been pretty awkward for her at first, having been out of that particular scene for years, and she really didn't know how to go about it, but she had to admit that even though it was just an early dinner and a few drinks, she had a pretty good time and could see herself going out with him again. Clicking through her messages again, she double-checked to make sure that David's school hadn't sent anything and switched over to her other banking account and did some mental calculations. It was enough to be comfortable for a couple months or so until she ran across some new chrome on the streets. Her mind drifted again. She figured that Naruto had a reputation around the building due to what he'd been up to, but she didn't know that he was known around the city too. When he confronted those two guys, she was sure that it was going to come to blows and that someone was going to end up hurt, but amazingly they backed down. She hadn't heard everything that was said, but they apologized to the vendor and ran off pretty quickly. The blonde had looked pretty embarrassed when he came back over, stopping to speak with a few local vendors that met him before he got too far. She'd been able to hear a bit more of that convo. Apparently the two gonks he chased off had been causing issues around the building and they were glad someone stood up to them. Hey mom. She was so absorbed in her thoughts she had missed the door to her left opening up, only snapping out of it after hearing her baby's voice. Hey mijo, she greeted with a smile, turning to look at the teen as he walked in. How was your day? The woman blinked at what he was wearing. It was pretty good mom. He was wearing a pair of black shorts with an orange stripe down the side along with an orange t-shirt that was wet and darkened with sweat. I didn't see you when I got home. You have to work late. No, I got home a few hours ago, she admitted while trying to remember if she'd bought those clothes for him sometime a while back. When did you get those? Looking down at his sweat-soaked shirt, he gave her a sheepish look. I got them to work out in. The teen admitted, got them from the lady selling clothes at the manufactory a while back. They weren't much and I had some eddies saved up from. Seeing him trail off with an embarrassed look on his face, Gloria shook her head. What did I tell you about skipping meals at school? She wondered when they'd have to have this conversation about him trying to save some eddies by not using what she gave him. Yeah, things were tough from time to time, but they were in a good spot financially for now and he was a growing young man. You promised me, mijo. He frowned at the look she gave him, feeling like a little shit. He couldn't tell her that he had a side gig at school selling XBDs at school to those uppity corpo gonks. That definitely wouldn't go over too well. She would wear out her slipper whooping him if she found out he was doing something like that, which could get him in a ton of trouble with both the school and law. I'm sorry mom, both for lying and making her worry. Standing up from the desk, she gave him a quick hug and ruffled his hair. Much to his annoyance, just don't do it anymore, okay? It was a request she'd made every time, but he always seemed to break later. But as annoying as it was, she knew where his mind was and felt a little proud that he was trying to help. Why don't you go and take a shower? Gloria made a face as he pulled away. Before you start smelling. Sniffing himself, David shrugged. I don't smell anything. Boys, his mother muttered, rolling her eyes. You will if you don't go shower. Now move it, I re-upped the shower already so we got plenty of hot water. Okay mom. Toss your clothes out here and I'll throw them in the wash. She returned to the terminal and logged off as he went into the small bathroom they shared, leaning around the corner a minute later to toss his clothes out to her before hopping in the shower. By the way, when did you start working out? Not too long ago. He called back over the sound of the shower running. Naruto's been helping me out. He has. Looking down at the shorts and shirt, She could definitely see the blonde's influence and gave a little smile at the thought. David definitely didn't have a good male role model growing up, and there were definitely worse guys for him to look up to, so she wouldn't pry. Then she smiled and shook her head as she carried the bundle over to the washing machine. I wonder what he would say if he knew his new chum took me out on a date today. Beep. Tossing his clothes into the machine with a few others and starting it for a small wash, the redhead accessed her holo and pulled up her messages. Speak of the devil, she mused with a little smile while seeing the blonde's name. Sorry about the mess during dinner. She shook her head and snorted. He'd apologized twice already, but like he'd said before, he'd done the right thing by helping that man, so she didn't hold it against him. I had a good time though, maybe we can do it again sometime. Heading back into the main area of their one-room apartment, she laid another set of clothing down on the bathroom sink for David, then sat on the couch as a sense of girlish giddiness washed over her. He wants to go out again. She grinned to herself at the thought, feeling a bit more self-confident. Sure, she'd been catcalled a few times on the job and propositioned more than she'd ever care to remember, but the blonde was definitely a cut above the gonks that tried getting into her pants before. Gee, I think I'd like that, she sent back after a minute, shaking her head at herself as she retyped it out a couple times when the previous ones didn't seem right. By that time, David came out of the bathroom, wearing one of his plain white t-shirts and a pair of gray sweatpants with his towel hanging over his neck. Whatcha up to mom? He called over, seeing her eyes lit up as she was connected to the holo. Oh, nothing mijo, just returning a message from a chum. XXX. Pacing along the floor in one of the city's many rundown, piss-stained apartments that littered the city, Meredith Stout idly looked around at the squalor some worthless gonk lived in while smoking a cigarette. Something crunched with each step she took, be it food, a roach, or a buck-a slice box, and she just couldn't understand how someone chose to live like this. Ignoring the scream coming from the other room, the corpo thumped the ashes onto the floor without care and glanced around at the other occupants in the room. Standing next to the door and looking like he'd rather be anywhere but here, her assistant Julian tried to ignore the screaming coming from the other room but couldn't hide the nervous twitches he got with every fresh cry of pain. On the other side of the door, one of her bodyguards, a 10-year vet with Militech's own private armed forces, stood at ease with his weapon holstered at his side. He was a tank of a man with plenty of combat chrome and soft packed into his body, which bulged with an impressive amount of synth muscle, giving him an unreal amount of bulk and strength compared to what a regular soldier boasted. Stout, I keep telling you that you're barking up the wrong tree. I don't have anything to do with that missing shipment. Glancing down, she glared coldly at the final occupant of the room. Looking worse for wear, Anthony Gilchrist was laying on the floor with his hands cuffed behind his back, a swollen eye and a busted lip. Please, that's all I know. They all glanced over to the door where the scream came from before she turned back to the restrained corpo who was staring at the closed, graffiti-covered door with wide eyes as the smell of melting plastic reached his nose. You keep saying that, but you have nothing to prove your innocence, she replied while looking down at him like he was one of the roaches that skittered across the floor. You had access to the deets, routes, security personnel, dates, and times, and let's not forget that recent deposit that went into your accounts. You pulled my banking information. He spat out, glaring at her with his one open eye. That's against protocol. You can't just do whatever you want because you can't do your job and keep track of your shipments. She blew a cloud of smoke down at him. I'm cleared to use whatever means I see fit to find that missing convoy, the woman mused, looking down at him with a raised eyebrow. Not only that, but... Meredith closed her eyes and let out a breath at being interrupted. Not only that, but I'm also cleared to liquidate you as soon as I find the last bit of proof I need. The look on his face as she said that made her smirk. That's right, Gilchrist. I don't know who covered for your last fuck up, but that isn't happening this time. Beep. Checking her holo, she found an unknown number trying to contact her, the profile icon and number both being restricted. She could figure out who it was pretty easy back at the office if she had to later if they didn't identify themselves. Connecting, she accepted the call and waited for the vid feed to connect. Stout here, start by telling me how. As the feed popped in, her eyes widened. Blonde hair, blue eyes, and 3 whisker-like marks on each cheek, it was him. Naruto Uzumaki, the gonk she'd been hunting down for the past few months. Hey there Stout, the blonde greeted with a gonk-ass grin on his face as he waved at her through the Holo's vid feed. I hear that you're looking for a few things around the city. Uzumaki Naruto, she muttered, managing to hide her shock that the man she'd been tracking down contacted her out of the blue by taking a drag off her smoke. How did you get this number? He shrugged. Let's just say I know a guy, he answered with a little grin and a wink that made her roll her eyes and cross her arms. But as I was saying, I hear you're missing something pretty important, or maybe I should say 3 somethings. And what do you know about that? She questioned, fixing him with the coldest glare she could manage. How about we meet up, just you and me? We can chat and see about how we could help each other out. You know, make a deal. A deal? She scoffed, shaking her head again with a huff. Closing her eyes for a moment, the woman looked thoughtful before nodding. Fine, there's an exit heading off Skyline towards the NID, Storm Channel under the overpass. We can meet there. Ending the call, she took a minute to think and process what just happened. The guy she'd been looking into just up and contacts her out of the blue offering to make some sort of deal. The chances of that were far too low. Did he have something to do with it? After that clusterfuck at the old Power Corp building, she knew he had what it took to pull it off. Ma'am, is everything alright? Glancing over to Julian, she grunted. You're authorized and cleared to operate company assets, correct? Ah, not everything, ma'am, he answered with a confused look on his face. Drones. I've operated a Militech Wyvern before, but I haven't been authorized for the Griffin. The Militech Wyvern was a small combat drone developed to be small and compact enough to fit inside a briefcase or under a vehicle's seat until it was needed, and equipped with a mid-caliber submachine gun for whenever the occasion called for. The Griffin could be called the Wyvern's aggressive bigger brother, armed with 3 to 4 guns depending on what was ordered and armored. When we return to the trucks get synced with the drones, you'll be covering those feeds. Turning to the door where her other prisoner was, Stout called out, wrap it up, we have another lead. A muffled, yes ma'am, came from the room as she looked to her other bodyguard. Get Gilchrist loaded up, we're moving out. The man nodded once and stepped over to the bound corpo, hoisting him up with ease before carrying him out the door. Muffled crying was heard, followed by a single gunshot as she followed him out the door. XXX. Meet alone in a storm drain. Does she think I'm stupid or something? That's got to be number 1 on the list of dumb moves to make so you get ambushed, Naruto mused while cutting the call and straddling his bike. Even though he said for them to meet alone, he had a sneaking suspicion that she would show up with backup either way, and honestly he was counting on it. If she wasn't alone, then it would just prove to him that she wasn't to be trusted. Not that it matters though. If they tried anything stupid, then he'd take care of it. Cranking his bike, Naruto pulled out of his parking spot and maneuvered around to the exit and out onto the street. It was getting close to rush hour, and while he could easily run to the Northside Industrial District, the roar of his bike's engine and the wind on his face was calling to him. If I ever see Sid again, I gotta get him something for the bike, he thought while raising his head in greeting to Aiko, who was cooking away at his stall in the late afternoon sun. Naruto revved the engine, drawing the attention of several passers-by, and felt the grin spreading across his face as he started to speed down the street. He loved the thrill he felt while driving his motorcycle through the busy streets, weaving in and out of traffic, dodging cars and pedestrians. He felt even more alive and free, like nothing could stop him. Hitting the bridge out of Santo and into Haywood, a flash of lights caught the blonde's attention and made him glance at his mirror. A police car pulled in behind him on the street, flashing its lights while the sound of his engine drowned out the siren. The side panel of the cop's car flashed an angry red when he didn't stop and kept going. Hitting his brakes and leaning hard into a turn, Naruto quickly let off and pulled back on the throttle as he shot off down the road, the cop's cruiser struggling to round the corner suddenly but managing to keep him in sight. Up ahead, a group of Valentinos noticed him and saw the cops a little ways behind him. They cheered him on as he passed by, one even jumping on the hood of their car to get a better look, throwing insults at the cops as they passed by. All right, time to lose him, he thought after a bit, having had his fun leading the NCPD cruiser on a merry chase around a few blocks. Spotting a busy intersection up the road, Naruto saw a gap between 2 trucks and decided to take it, hoping to save some time and lose his pursuer. He leaned forward and squeezed his bike through the narrow space, barely avoiding a collision and feeling a rush of exhilaration as he made it to the other side. Laughing, the ninja glanced back to see the squad car slam on brakes behind the two trucks, honking their horn as he got further away. He thought about yelling something back at them but settled for raising his arm and giving them the finger. He'd been pulled over once before not too long ago, finding out firsthand just how corrupt the cops were. Since he didn't have a license, the officer threatened to impound his bike and took the chance to extort the blonde, offering to look the other way in return for the proper paperwork. A few hundred eddies later, the cop left him alone with a smirk that made him want to knock the pig's teeth out. The burnt orange bike growled as he quickly left Haywood and crossed over into the city center, or Corpo Plaza to be exact, on his way towards Watson, passing by Reconciliation Park as he did so. He did his best not to attract too much attention through the plaza. Not only were there a few more cops here, but Corpo Security also kept a presence here to protect their corporate interests. As he drove towards the bridge, Naruto let his mind wander a bit and cursed. He'd promised Misty that he'd call Jackie and almost completely forgot. Pulling up at a stoplight, he quickly found his chum's contact and gave him a call while waiting for the light to change. He didn't have to wait too long as Jackie picked up just as the light changed. Naruto, Mono, it's good to hear from you. Jackie had a grin on his face over the small vid feed when he picked up. Heard Kirk tried to stiff you for a job. Hey Jackie, yeah, I think I'm gonna avoid any gigs from Kirk for a while. That's the second time he's tried that. He grumbled before passing a slow-moving Maimai on the road that honked its horn at him. You'd think he'd learn after what you did to him last time. The man chuckled, leaning back and crossing his arms. Pepe said he's been looking a little nervous around the bar. Thinks you might be coming to fuck with him sometime. Why's he think that? The blonde asked, raising an eyebrow at the shit-eating grin Jackie had on his face. Well, the man paused for a moment to laugh a little. Me and Peeps been fucking with him about it, told him you were still pissed and thinking about teaching him a lesson. Gunk actually missed a meeting with a client the first day cause he thought you were after him. That made Naruto laugh. Dude, that's awful, keep fucking with him. Hee, will do. He gave the blonde a thumbs up. So what's up, Mono? I went by Vic's earlier today and talked to Misty. Oh, and when were you gonna tell me you two were together, by the way? He questioned, getting a bit sidetracked and making Jackie rub the back of his head with a sheepish grin. Anyway, I was talking to Misty and she said you rushed out in a hurry. I just wanted to make sure you were okay. Jackie blinked and looked touched for a moment before chuckling. Yeah Holmes, I'm Nova. Chum of mine is having some trouble with her corpo gig though. He looked around for a moment and continued with a lower tone. You know that Sokka bigwig that got zeroed a couple days back. That made the blonde blink as he came up to another stoplight and stopped. Well, her and a bunch of her corpo colleagues are being investigated now. I won't go into it over the holo, but she was freaking out. That made Naruto's eyes widen. He actually missed the light turning green and was jolted out of it when the car behind him, the same Maimai he'd passed earlier, blew its horn at him. She gonna be okay? He asked, twisting the throttle and waving to the guy behind him apologetically. He was pretty sure that the guy Jackie mentioned was the same one he'd killed a few days back, Amelia's father Francis Bennett, and if that got Jackie's friend in trouble he'd have to do something to make things right. Not too sure honestly. She's nervous but doesn't think she'll be in trouble, unless someone tries to frame her, that is. But she didn't have anything to do with the guy being killed. The man nodded on the other end of the holo, not even questioning how he knew that. Yeah, but the corpo world's fucking vicious like that, he huffed. Tried getting her to leave that soulless corpo hell and join us on the edge, but she's sticking with it. Knowing that his actions had put one of Jackie's friends in a bad spot, Naruto felt like an ass and decided that if she ever needed any help with something he'd try and pay her back. She was a friend of Jackie's, so she couldn't be a bad person, right? Anyway, what are you up to, Mono? Why not come over to the bar and chill? We can make Kirk shit himself, he. I'd like to, he grumbled again in return, nearing the bridge over the river that would take him into Watson. Got some stuff to take care of though. Damn Holmes, you working a gig or something? Something like that. Want some help? Thinking about it, Naruto almost agreed before shaking his head. Nah, I appreciate it, but I got it handled. He didn't want Jackie getting tangled up with this. This situation he was in was all his doing, so he'd be the one to clean it up. No need to drag his friend into it and risk his life. I'm actually on the way to meet with someone about it. Alright, Mono, I won't hold you up but listen, seriously let me know if you need anything okay? You got it Jackie. Later Choom. Later Choom. XXX. Looking over at his mainline as she sat on the ragged couch in the middle of their garage hideout, Maine stepped over and leaned across the back to peer over her shoulder. You know, it might be some time before Sasha and Kiwi locate that bike, he whispered lowly into her ear, his arm snaking around her shoulder and lightly caressing her cheek. Dorio hummed with a little laugh as she slowly turned her head towards him and saw him wiggle his eyebrows suggestively, which made her laugh. And what do you suggest we do then? She questioned playfully before he leaned in and captured her lips with his, getting another hum from her as they kissed. His hand left her cheek and slid its way over the purple collar of her black coat, slipping underneath to grope her chest, earning a little moan from her as they broke apart. I got a few ideas, he smirked before leaning down again to kiss her neck. Hey Becca, stop fucking with my shit. Your shit. There was a clatter and both glanced over too. You gonked on glitter again. I brought this shit with me. Yeah, I put it in with your shit so I wouldn't have to carry it myself. The two of them stared at each other for a moment as several loud bangs and curses came from the other room. Should we? Maine cut her off before she could continue with another kiss. Becca hasn't started shooting yet. Let's just ignore the kids, babe. He grinned while climbing over the couch and on top of her, their combined weight making the furniture groan and creak as she smirked back at him, the thrill of screwing around with people in the other room making her blush. Hey, what the fuck, Becca? Don't throw that. There was a loud clatter and the sound of something breaking. Wanna take this somewhere a little more private? He asked after a few seconds of hearing more and more stuff being thrown, getting a nod from the woman. The thrill of screwing around with their team close by instantly wearing off as the two siblings continued to argue in the other room. Both climbed off of each other and fixed their disheveled clothing, Maine readjusting a certain part of his anatomy and smacking her on the ass with a grin as they headed towards the door. Just wait till I get you alone, the woman smirked at him, giving the man a smirk that he mirrored. Oh, I can't wait. XXX. While hacking Night City's municipal subnets was considered a crime, the city only cared about certain parts of it enough to give it more than the most basic ICE, with Netwatch being paid to provide overwatch and security. Try to hack into the mayor's office or personal subnet. You better be fucking good or have a good team in place. More than one nosy overconfident netrunner has found themselves short-sourced by a demon sent by Netwatch. But try to hack the live feed to the city's traffic and CCTV servers. Any half-trained gonk could bypass that ice. Break the ice, inject a little custom-tailored soft made by yours truly, then sit back and chill, all without having to deep dive and submerge yourself in ice to keep from overheating. Sasha gave the screen a catty little grin and stretched from her setup, sipping from her cold can of Nicolas Sakura while watching her cyberdeck. Her custom search program was combing through the feeds much faster than any human ever could. It was far from perfect and any results would have to be double-checked, but it was a start. Hey, how's it looking on your end, P.K. Cracked through NCPD's internal database via their subcon servers, getting a peek through their traffic depth. Their system is a mess, could crack this ice with last-gen software. Workin' that magic. Looking through the traffic cams myself, got my babies running through the feeds with a custom recognition algorithm. Scrolling and snagging screen grabs of any older model bike. It's a Harlan Dawson Cruiser, a 2030s model, I think. Didn't know you knew your bikes like that. 0. Arch is more my thing, but you gotta love the classic style. Got my eye on a Nazaire, pretty good deal too. Still think we shoulda asked around and called up a infobro. Gotta be easier than this. Yeah, but clients paying for us not to put the word out on the streets. Bike's pretty rare, be pretty suspicious if word hit the streets that he was looking for one just before it got stolen. Gotta do our own legwork this time. How's the cutie by the way? 3 haven't seen her the last couple times the crew got together. She's been messing with her slot picking soft. Apparently one of the gonks she tried had some new code, stopped the eject and alerted the guy. Warned her to stay up to date on soft updates and news. She get pinged. K. No, but, hey, I'm forwarding a report I found. References a traffic stop describing a old orange motorcycle. Check if there's any cameras in that area. S. K. Hey, this is from over a week ago. K. Hey, it's better than what we got right now. If this is the right one, use it as a reference for your algorithm, could narrow the search. S. Ooh. -0. K. There's a weird amount of porn on the NCPD subnet, like creepy amounts. S. Ew. Go on. 3. K. Pretty softcore actually, half expected to find it full of deviant shit or homemade prison porn. S. PFFT. Funding so low they can't even afford good porn. Ooh, looks like a cam caught something from that day, scrolling the data now and linking you in. XXX. The sun was low on the horizon, turning it his favorite mix of orange and purple in Night City's polluted skyline by the time he made it to his destination and pulled into a service tunnel, avoiding several half-ripped bags of trash piled near the turnoff as he drove. The winding tunnel partly illuminated by harsh pale red lights below the graffiti-covered walls. If there were ever a place that could be compared to his mindscape, this was it. Especially once he got a little ways down the tunnel and spotted several pipes that followed the walls. As he got to the end of the tunnel, he looked around and pulled out onto the long open concrete tunnel where a large Chevrolet Ragnar SUV was parked ahead of him facing away from him. The blonde shook his head and chuckled at himself. He'd been right, she hadn't shown up alone, but then again neither did he. A couple of his clones had scouted while he took his time cruising to the next tunnel. They surveyed the area and gave him a full layout within minutes. He'd skipped the exit off of Skyline that she pointed him towards and went to the next one further down just for this reason. Aside from knowing that she wasn't alone, the clones alerted him to the fact that a pair of armed drones were flying around too. Sitting back on the seat, he watched the drones flying around and noticed one of them stop mid-flight, giving it a cheery wave as it noticed him sitting on his bike behind them. It wasn't long before the vehicle quickly turned around and approached him, the drones covering and orbiting from a distance. Hey guys. He called out as the doors swung open and out stepped a pair of large, heavily muscled men with cybernetic arms, each wearing dark sunglasses and wearing Corpo-branded tactical armor, followed by Meredith Stout smoking a cigarette and looking rather annoyed. Hope I didn't keep you waiting. Stout couldn't believe he just rolled up on a fucking motorcycle like he was on some evening cruise. This guy that was supposed to be some kind of merc boogeyman was sitting there waving and grinning kind of fucking gonk, like he wasn't responsible for a massacre a few months back. Stepping off of his bike, Naruto saw one of the men starting to approach him, probably to try and disarm him or something. The blonde woman stayed next to her vehicle with the other guard close by standing with his hands clasped in front of him. And here I was thinking we'd have a nice one-on-one chat, he called out while looking at the approaching man and meeting him halfway. Surprisingly enough, the man looked him up and down but didn't even try to take the pistol holstered on his thigh. If you think I'd come here alone, then you're a goddamn fool. She grumbled, not knowing he could hear her as her guard sent a message that the blonde wasn't packing anything other than his sidearm according to his scan. Walking towards him after getting the message, she looked him up and down as well before stopping a few feet ahead of him with one arm under her chest and her other holding her smoke to her lips. So you him, huh? The thought of having her men hold him at gunpoint had crossed her mind. Not only did he do some unexplainable things, but he had information on her missing shipments as well, but with the few guards she had, she couldn't risk it for now. Well, you said you had information on my trucks, get to it. Where are they? Naruto looked at her with a raised eyebrow, and laughed. Come on now, do you really think I'll just up and tell you? He questioned. I may not be the brightest, but I'm not that stupid. She hummed, frowning at him. Can't blame me for trying. Fine, you said you wanted to deal, then let's deal. What do you want? Meredith, we both have a problem and I think we can help each other out. You're missing some trucks and don't know where they are or who has them. Not only do I know the who and where, and I can even secure them as well for you. The corpo woman hummed at his words again, blowing smoke towards him with a raised eyebrow. And in return you want what? Well, I have a problem and I think you can help me. You see, recently some Militech people have been looking into me and I kinda like my privacy. He explained, making her eyes widen momentarily. So in return for taking care of your problem, I put a stop to the investigation on you. That what you want? She questioned, cutting him off while standing in the headlights as the storm channel got darker around them with the setting sun. He nodded, making her smirk at him. Fine, you secure my trucks and I'll make sure the investigation and search for one Naruto Uzumaki ends. Grinning, Naruto stepped forward and held out his hand only for the guard behind him to quickly place a hand on his sidearm, ready to draw in less than a second. Feeling jumpy dude. He chuckled, looking over at the man while still holding out his hand to the woman. He turned back to her and looked her in the eye. Deal. Stout looked at the offered hand for a moment and stuck the cigarette between her lips before grabbing the offered hand, shaking it once. Deal. XXX. From what little he knew about the North Side, it used to be a pretty well-off factory sub-district until some odd earthquakes took place, damaging a lot of equipment and infrastructure. After a quick cost analysis, many corporate interests decided that it was simply cheaper to abandon their factories than to pay for its repairs. As he got closer to the factory, less than a few blocks away from his knowledge, a flash of color drew his attention, causing him to double-take upon seeing two men in orange monk robes sitting on a bench beside an old bus stop. There weren't too many people around the area, so seeing them caught his interest and made him slow down and turn back. As he pulled over next to the curb and killed the engine, Naruto took a moment to look at the pair. The first looked to be crying and clutching his arm, which looked to be a mess of tangled wires and blood-crusted metal plates to his chest. His shaved head was covered in pointed metal spikes and one eye was a glowing red optic twice as big as his actual organic eye. The blonde looked down for a moment, about to push the kickstand out with his foot when a familiar voice called out to him, "Benefactor." Making him look up quickly to see that another monk had turned to face him, looking at him through a pair of round glasses with yellow lenses. You. He was shocked. He hadn't seen the mysterious monks since he'd returned to Night City all those months ago. Looking between the two monks, he went ahead and kicked out the kickstand and climbed off. "You guys okay?" The other monk raised his head with a miserable look on his face, his jaw covered in jagged metal plates. "Forgive my companion, dear benefactor. He and his brother crossed paths with some rather cruel men on their own travels," the monk told him sadly from beside his companion. "These misguided men forced cybernetics upon him." The other monk grimaced and tried to speak, the jagged plates making it hard for him to speak as poorly installed chrome not only caused him pain but physically made it hard to move his jaw. "My brother. Still, seeing the pain the man was in, the joints between the poorly installed chrome wet with the monk's own blood, Naruto felt a surge of icy rage well up in his chest. A few people passed by them, looking over at the three of them curiously before shrugging and going about their own business. Some even made offhanded comments about the chromed monk, calling him the metal monk, which made the man in question hunch over and pull his robes tighter over himself. "Dear benefactor, his brother is still being held by these men," the other finished for his companion sitting next to him on the bench. "I fear that he may share the same fate soon enough." "Where are they?" the blonde questioned, a dark look on his face as he looked between the two. "These men took them to a plant a few blocks from here." Naruto's eyes widened a bit. "The former All Foods protein processing plant. These men are members of Maelstrom and..." "I think I know exactly where you're talking about," Naruto said, cutting him off with narrowed eyes. "I'm headed that way myself." That made the metal monks look up at him, his one remaining Ganic eye widening as they met his. "I'll try my best to save him and make sure they never hurt anyone else like this again." That got a small sob out of the man. "Please," he choked out. "Don't." That caught the blonde by surprise. He actually jerked his head back as if he'd been slapped. "You don't want me to save your brother?" he questioned in shock as the man shook his head. "No, please do. Just don't kill." "I believe he is asking you not to kill these men," the other man stayed, getting a grateful nod from the other, and upon seeing the shocked look of confusion on the blonde's face, he continued, "Yes, these men have forced my companion to go against our teachings and perverted his body with chrome against his will, but to end their lives will not change what has already been done. Taking their lives will only burden his soul with guilt." Looking at the teary eye of the monk who nodded, Naruto took a breath and nodded as well. "Fine, I'll try my best." He turned and hopped back on his bike and got ready to kickstart it again, "but if it comes down to it." The blonde trailed off. If he had to make a choice between the monk and some Maelstrom Gangoon's life, he would do what was needed. The younger monk looked down but both men nodded. All that he asks is for you to try, dear benefactor. The monk stated calmly, lowering his head in gratitude with the other quickly following suit. You two gonna wait here for a while. The area wasn't safe, he'd have a clone watch over them when he left. This area was mainly claimed by Maelstrom, but the lines were blurry with tigerclaw thugs roaming around. When the older of the two monks nodded once, he knew what he needed to do. The bike roared to life once again, the rumble of the engine echoing around the abandoned buildings as he turned and took off towards the All Foods factory once again. Leaving the two at the bus stop behind him to go and not only find the missing Militech convoy to uphold his end of the bargain with Stout but rescue the monk's brother as well. From their seat at the bus stop, both men watched him leave for a few moments before the brutalized monk turned to the other. Teacher, was he the one you? Yes, dear student, he is the weary traveler I spoke of. XXX. Jackie, that's awful, Misty tried to say but couldn't hide the giggle that slipped moments prior. Whenever he was free, Jackie had made it a point to come by and hang out with her around closing time, even giving her a ride home every now and then. The bull of a man gave her a grin from his seat on her chakra harmonization chair while she sat sideways in his lap, resting her head against his while he wrapped his arms around her. Kirk deserves it. Not long after talking to Naruto, he'd come back to see her just to let her know everything was Nova. That and spending time with her too. Beep. Huh. Connecting to his hollow, Jackie's eyes lit up while Misty gave him a questioning look. Naruto, calling. Want me to give you a minute? She asked, starting to slide off his lap only for him to hold on to her. He grinned at her and shook his head. Nah, just gonna see what's up. He turned his attention back to the hollow and answered it, smirking at the blonde's icon. He had to wonder why Naruto left it as something that embarrassing for the world to see, but to each his own. Hey Holmes, what's up? The blonde's bid feed loaded in, showing the blonde's face as he drove. Hey Jackie, I catch you at a bad time. The tone of his voice told Jackie that something was up. Nah choom, just chilling with Misty at the shop. Why, what's up? Need a favor, the thing I'm taking care of just got a little more complicated. Need some backup? Not exactly, going after some Maelstrom gonks and ran into one of their victims. A monk they kidnapped and chipped against his will. That made the man grimace and Misty gave him a concerned look when she saw the look her input's face. Holy shit choom, that's fucked up. The guy's brother is still there, gonna try and get to him before they do the same to him. I'll handle that, but the other guy needs to see a ripper. Could you pick them up and get Vic to give him a look? I'll cover the cost. Yeah Holmes, I can get him to Vic. Wait, you said them? Naruto took a moment to explain and Jackie nodded. Alright, I got you. Gonna have to borrow a car though, no room on my bike. Misty patted his arm, motioning for him to let her go, and he did, where she slid off his lap and headed towards her counter. Got a location? I'll send it to you. Thanks Jackie. Ending the call, he looked over to tell Misty that he had to cut their time short only to find her holding the card to her little four-door Thornton Galena hatchback with a little smile on her face. Babe. Handing the card over to him, Misty gave him a peck on the lips and smiled while patting his shoulder. Drive careful, okay? I'll go help Vic get ready. XXX. Just outside of Kabuki on the north side of Watson, Naruto looked down at the All Foods factory from the rooftop of the apartment building next door. The building was just as neglected as the rest of the neighborhood, with bullet-riddled cars left to rust in the parking lot with battered cargo containers scattered around with Maelstrom graffiti all over the walls. He had to admit that if he hadn't known better, he'd have thought that the building was actually abandoned with the lack of lights and movement in the area. The few people brave enough to be on the streets crossed the road when they passed the building. There was no telling how many innocent people these gangoons have hurt just by being in the wrong place at the wrong time, like the monk and his brother. Another influx of memories surged through his mind as another clone dispelled, alerting him to a broken exhaust vent on the roof he could use to infiltrate the factory. Several others had been found by his other clones, all spread out around the building as both lookouts and scouts gathering information. He could storm the place with relative ease, overrun the gangoons with pure numbers, but that could lead to the brother being hurt in the confusion, especially if he was opened up by whatever they have passing as a ripperdoc. Gonna have to be stealthy with this one. he mused, while crossing his arms and crouching down as he looked out over the building. At least until I find the monk and get him out of there. More memories came flooding in. One clone found a service entrance that was held shut with a simple chain and padlock, nothing he couldn't get through though. But oddly enough he hadn't seen any of the gangoons themselves. A few cameras and an auto turret here and there but no borged out gangers which struck him as odd. The other gangs in Night City made their presence known around their hideouts. Did Maelstrom only use tech for their security? Let's see. Got vents and an access hatch on the roof, some broken windows and a loading bay door up front, and that service entrance in the back. He continued while squinting his eyes in concentration. He didn't have a ton of time to plan but then again, flying by the seat of his pants was his specialty, right? Gone were his orange pants and vest, the clothes he loved so much, and in their place was what remained of his Shino gear. The old Noosa military vest was history, no telling where it ended up after he left it at Cammy's ofrenda. He knew Jackie was holding onto the broken mask so maybe he grabbed that too. Instead of a plate carrier he just wore a long-sleeved black shirt with reinforced material over the elbows with Cammy's mask sitting atop his head. XXX. Kneeling on the harsh concrete floor, head bowed in prayer, Ishibashi repeated his teacher's mantra softly over and over again while awaiting to share in his brother's fate. These men, more chrome than flesh, found humor in what they were doing and took delight in showing him what they'd done to his newfound brother Biku. Laughing at their anguish and tears. Don't worry, Chum. The monk couldn't stop himself from trembling as he looked up to see one of the leaders grinning at him through the glass security door keeping him trapped. After we're done chipping in some new chrome we'll decide on what to give you. He, no sense in letting out old chrome go to waste now, is it? The man was much bigger than the others, the upper part of his face removed and replaced with a harsh glowing optic glaring at him through the glass. Hey Royce, Brick wants ya. Someone called from further away, making the beast of a man growl and groan. Course he fucking does. He snarled under his breath before turning back to the monk. Don't go anywhere, I'll be back soon enough. Ishibashi shuddered as the beastly man left and pulled his robes a bit tighter as he listened to the footsteps fade away into the distance. XXX. Hey dum-dum, here we scored pretty fucking big with that last truck. Walking down a hallway a pair of heavily chromed men made their way through the upstairs administration offices used as a place to crash or get gonked out of their minds on whatever they had on hand. The place was falling apart thanks to Hyler losing his shit a while back. Fucker went cyberpsycho and set half the damn floor on fire before setting off a bunch of grenades. Fuck yeah we did, Dum-Dum chuckled, his voice crackling a bit which made him curse. Fucking squawk box. He poked at the wires and tech attached to his throat. But yeah, Kaiser's got his in a fucking knot over all the cyber we clept from that convoy. Noosa military grade chrome worth millions. The other Gangoon grinned, his synth flesh looking pale and leathery compared to most people's. I got my eye on that targeting chip. Yeah, it's for one of the autoguns but fuck it, I can make it work. Dum-dum. The man turned and looked back down the war-torn hallway they'd been walking down. The fuck you go Chum. He stepped forward towards a nearby doorway, the remaining pieces of what used to be the door laying against the opposite wall. If you're trying to scare me you fucker then it ain't gonna work. Each step he took seemed to echo and the hall seemed a lot more quiet than he remembered. Hey I ain't fucking playing you gonk. Dum-dum. Something moved in the room and he groaned. You better not be pissing in there you jack off. Something grabbed him by the shoulder and he squealed. The grip on his shoulder slung him around mid-squeal and just before he could curse at what he thought was his Chum, a fist shattered his optics and sent him to the floor in a pile. The last thing he saw through his broken optics was a man with a strange long-eared mask figure looming over him just before being knocked out via a kick to the head. This floor's clear, the man huffed, blowing a raspberry behind the mask while lacing his finger behind his head just as another identical masked man stepped out of the room, dropping an unconscious Dum-Dum on the floor as he did. Was that guy called Dum-Dum? Yep, the other clone snorted, kinda wanna know why. Well, let's head down to the next floor and secure it too. You wanna take the lead? They looked at each other for a moment and squared up. 1, 2, 3, shoot. Fuck. Ha. Paper covers rock bitch, get moving. The other clone grumbled and kicked an empty air hypo left on the floor, walking towards the stairs while ignoring the chuckling clone trailing behind. XXX. Naruto had to admit that out of all the gangs in Night City, Maelstrom was probably the scariest looking of the lot. 6th Street had the militaristic soldier look, the Valentinos dressed to impress, the Tiger Claws were a mix of motorcycle racing leather and tacky suits, he hadn't actually seen a voodoo boy yet so he'd skip them for now, and the mocks, well there was some odd feelings there. Scary hot. Fear boner inducing maybe. Those girls were tiny in number but they fought a lot harder than the other gangs to defend their people. Maelstrom on the other hand took cybernetic implants way too far, to a psychotic level in fact as they danced on the ever-blurry edge of sanity and cyberpsychosis. Many of them didn't even get chipped by a real ripper with massive chunks of their skin replaced with synth skin crudely covering wires and tubes all over their body. A dozen or so squads of clones were crawling all over the factory by now, each taking different paths and clearing out the factory. While he himself had joined the groups heading in through the back service entrance and split off to go his own way. Ending up utterly fucking lost. It was hard to believe that this place was supposed to be a factory with the amount of hallways and random rooms this place seemed to have, maybe it had offices and administration workers too at one time. Each hall seemed to be the same, partially blocked by trash and crates bearing various different company logos, most likely stolen from previous heists and hijackings these guys pulled. You catch that shit between Royce and the boss. You know what it's about. Choom I don't fucking know, you know I don't like having to listen to that gunk shit. Hearing the two voices getting closer, he looked around and stepped into the space beside a pile of haphazardly stacked crates held by a struggling pair of frayed straps. Royce keeps running his mouth like he is in bricks gonna bitch slap his ass down just like last time. Spoke one as he turned the corner. Their heavy boots with metal strips clunking against the floor as they walked right past the blonde's hiding place just out of view. Holding his breath as the first passed, Naruto grimaced at the up-close view of the sight of the guy's patchwork synthetic skin bulging and bunched up around the edges of whatever chrome he had chipped into his overchromed body. Moments after the first passed, his Choom followed behind at a leisurely pace, a handheld cyberdeck with a half-dozen or so stickers on it under his arm. I'm staying outta it and you should too, he grumbled, his voice buzzing electronically, ain't shit good gonna come out of them butting heads. Like a shadow, Naruto slipped out from his cover and behind the unaware ganger following after his Choom, waiting for him to finish speaking. Like lightning, he kicked the Gangoon in the back of his knee, knocking him off balance and using his stumble backwards to trip him and toss him head first into the ground. Huh. The other one grunted, hearing the clatter as his Choom's cyberdeck clattered to the floor and turned around. He caught sight of the blonde and opened his mouth to yell and Naruto did the first thing that came to mind to keep it from happening. He kicked him in the balls. Catching the man by his blood-stained Militech branded tactical vest as he started to fall, Naruto looped his arm around the ganger's neck and squeezed, the monk, where is he? Already struggling to breathe from the kick to his crotch, the man wheezed and coughed out his answer, fuck you, while gripping the blonde's wrist and attempting to pull himself free. Hey! Glancing back, Naruto spotted another Maelstrom member come around the same corner as these two, a shocked expression on what remained of his face as he took in the scene before him and started reaching for his gun. But thinking quickly, the blonde turned back to his captured ganger and snatched the knife attached to the gonk's chest rig. Not exactly a kunai but it would do. Swinging back around he sent the knife spinning down the hallway and into one of the straps holding back the leaning stack of crates. The other soon snapped as well at the extra weight and the whole thing toppled. They hit the ganger like a ton of bricks, knocking him into the adjacent wall with a shocking amount of force and pinning him there which made Naruto wince. Those cases and crates were a lot heavier than he thought it seemed. With that taken care of, he turned back to the one in his grasp. Now, where is the... He started only to trail off as he noticed the overchromed gonk was limp. Slapping him a few times with his free hand, Naruto released him when he barely reacted, huffing as the man sank to his knees and fell face first onto the ground. God damn it, he muttered, nudging the unconscious Gangoon with his foot while scratching the back of his head, well maybe the next one will know. XXX. S. Su bored. K. S. Ukiwi. -3 whatcha doing? K. Well I sent Maine the deets on what we found, might be a bit before he gets back to us. S. Y. K. S. Degree. K. Yeah. S. Lol. You caught him with his 8 == D out. K. Kill me now. S. Don't worry girl. Not the first time it's happened. K. At least we managed to find this damn bike. You still tracking it? S. Getting close. Lost it in the storm channel in Watson. Taking a peek through nearby feeds to see if it went another way. But guess what I did see? K. S. Spoilsport. P spotted a truck leaving. Peeped the regs and it's got Militech written all over it. Oh, found it. Gonks heading towards the NID. This is from a while ago. Gonna comb the feed some more and try to find where he's gone. K. Guy's heading there. You get his face. S. Nope. Got a disruptor blurring his face. K. Must be a solo then. Working a gig for Militech maybe. We'll have to be careful then. S. And you'll have to pass the deets to Maine. Gonna sneak another peek. 3. XXX. Situated above the facility's main factory floor was what the rest of the gang called the control room, a collection of servers, terminals, and data links all spliced together in a crude yet effective runner's suite connected to the building's security. Inside, a woman spun around in a ragged office chair with a cyberdeck in her lap with her arms crossed and pouting. Gonks can go out and jack a bunch of trucks but can't even take the time to get me a fucking runner's chair. She thought angrily with a huff while looking at one of the camera feeds showing some of her chums messing with the stolen Militech trucks. She'd been asking for weeks to get one. She knew right where it was and all they had to do was shoot the fat fucker that owned it and drag it back, but no, she had to hop into a fridge full of ice when she had to deep dive and sit around panties as she dried off. Her eyes lit up with a message. Boss man Brick. Hey Zarya. Unlock the elevator. I'm heading out. With a sigh, she rolled her chair over to a terminal and tapped a few buttons without looking, then went back to pouting. Her name was Zarya Hughes, Brick's top netrunner in the gang, not that the title meant anything though. Out of the 1,200 gonks that called themselves Maelstrom, less than maybe 100 or so of them had the smarts or interest in tech outside of Chrome. Zarya was a young woman, the top half of her face removed and replaced with the gang's signature glowing red optical plate while the rest of her head sported the maximum amount of SmartLink connections, slots and a custom dive port. Both arms were replaced at the elbow with bare metal cyber arm, not exactly her choice but they were good enough for now. Once she got a hold of the legs she wanted them, she'd look into who had a set of arms she'd like. Stupid Royce, I could do a lot fucking more with that chair. Just gotta run all the feeds through it and I could handle the entire hideout from one spot. The asshole had talked Brick out of the idea somehow and now she was stuck watching multiple vid feeds on this janky ass setup. Speaking of which, tapping away at the keys, she pulled up the elevator feed so she could lock it back down once the boss left. Security precautions and all that since they had all this stolen Militech shit, at least that's what the boss man said. Flipping through some of the other feeds in her boredom, she spotted something odd on a feed and hummed while bringing it up, never noticing a vent in the ceiling wiggle free and nearly fall, only for a hand to jolt forward and catch it before it could go too far. Something's wrong, need to look at this again. Zarya's glowing red optics focused on the terminal screen for a moment before she cursed and decided to jack in her personal and get an even better look by having it feed directly into her neural. Once again not seeing a shadowy figure peep over the edge and look around the room. The figure slowly slid out from the vent, holding himself up on the edge as he lowered himself without a sound and landed softly on the floor, barely missing several bucket slice boxes as he did. Still occupied with the cams, Zarya scrolled the feed she wanted and looked at it closely. It showed part of the old factory floor below them and she pulled up the previous few minutes to check out the weird movement she'd seen. Here we go, the footage showed 3 of her chums sitting around on the machinery below her. Assholes are drinking beer and didn't bring me one. She hissed, planning payback in the back of her head. But all thoughts of such a thing left her mind as each one was suddenly yanked backwards out of sight, which made her jump, heart pounding. Holy shit. She gasped, quickly scrambling to disconnect from her personal link and have someone come check it out. Gotta call the guys. But not even a moment after her vision returned after jacking out of the terminal, she felt something grab her head and slam it down on the desk, her face pressing half the keys at once. Don't move, a voice told her, do as I say and you get to live. You understand. She nodded, pressing more keys as she did and felt the hand gripping her hair be replaced with what she suspected was the barrel of a pistol. Good. Now sit up. She did so and was dismayed at the sight of the old and now broken keyboard. One of the keys was even stuck to her temple. But all worries about the tech vanished as she got a good look at the one who was now holding a pistol at her brainpan. Her repro black market medtech biomonitor flashing an alert at the sudden surge in her blood pressure. Oh God, she flinched when he raised his other hand and brought it up to his masked face, placing a single finger over the mouth of the animal mask in a shushing motion. What the fuck is the Shino doing here? Oh God, we're fucked. He's gonna zero the whole fucking gang. Oh God, oh fuck. She screamed in her mind. The monk, spoke the Shino after a moment, turning her chair around fully to face him while lowering his overture slightly. It wasn't aimed at her face anymore but at the center of her chest now. She was so distracted by the fact that she was face to face with this boogeyman that she nearly missed the question, his voice hitting her like a jolt that made her flinch. The what? Your gang snatched 2 monks off the street, forced one to get chipped as a joke against his religion and tossed him out to fend for himself. The masked man explained slowly as if speaking to a child, but his voice was full of icy cold anger and that made her tremble. His brother is still here, waiting for the same treatment. He leaned forward, placing a hand on the back of her chair as he got closer and closer to her face, letting her see a glowing red slitted eye through the eye of the mask. All she could do was stare at the slitted eye as she was leaned back in the chair, the old worn-out chair itself creaking as it did so. A moment passed and she opened her mouth to speak. Please, don't kill me. She whispered, pleading. That's the thing, he gave a humorless chuckle. How many people have you and your chums murdered that beg the same thing? The gun barrel pressed into her ribcage painfully as he spoke. How many did you let live him? Or better yet, how many did you let go without hurting them? If she had the ability, tears would be streaming down her cheeks. But you know what? I'm not going to kill you. That threw the girl for a loop and all she could do was look at him in shock and confusion. Yeah, that's right. I'm not going to kill you, the Shino repeated before raising the gun and pressing it beneath her chin harshly. Even though you deserve it, and you know why. She shook her head slowly as best as she could. That monk, the one you assholes hurt so much, he asked me not to. All he wants is for his brother to be saved. The gun left her chin and she found herself looking back down at the Shino. I know where he is. Her voice was a lot smaller than before as she processed what she just heard. She remembered the laughing and jokes everyone made as they watched the monk be ripped apart and chipped back together without anything for the pain. They even pumped him full of drugs to keep him from passing out. Now that same man asked the Shino to save his brother but not get payback for what they did. Where? XXX. Ma'am, the team is ready for you. Good. Flicking the ash from the end of her smoke, Meredith turned to look at her assistant for a moment and raised an eyebrow at him. Julian, what are you doing with that? The young man was wearing a standard-issue Militech ballistic vest over his white office shirt and had AM-221 Saratoga submachine gun hanging across his chest from the sling over the back of his neck. The young man looked down at the gun and gave her a nervous grimace. Well, I thought I might need this if any shooting started. She started to open her mouth but stopped, only shaking her head slowly. Did one of the men give that to you or did you take it upon yourself to grab that? Ah, he trailed off nervously. Never mind, the only reason I ask is because if you plan on using it, you might want to actually have a magazine in the damn thing. She gave him a exasperated look and motioned towards the gun itself, making the young tech slowly look down again and rotate the weapon to see the empty slot where the magazine was supposed to go. He didn't speak but the reddening of his face said it all. If you want to carry it just go load the damn thing, Stout sighed while waving him off, but just so you know, I'm not planning on tossing you into a fight. I'm only expecting you to verify the cargo when we get to the trucks. Why yes ma'am. Watching him leave, she snorted and took another drag from her cigarette. He was a good kid but just that, a fucking kid. He was an administrative assistant and a technician not a soldier so the only things he should really be armed with was a sidearm and drones at the most. Anyway, let's go brief the team. She huffed, turning and heading towards the team's briefing room here in one of the company's safe houses scattered around the city. With her position as senior operations manager, she had the authority to use many company assets to ensure that Militech corporate interests were protected. So long as she produced results, actions such as holding Gilchrist against his will and subjecting him to enhanced interrogation would be ignored or even quietly applauded depending on the results. But then again, thoughts of what would happen if she failed to locate the missing convoy flashed through her mind, giving her a brief surge of anxiety. Most of the evidence against Gilchrist was circumstantial at best, and if she failed he would take her place, and considering the last few days. If there was such a thing as the corpo gods that the rank and file gonks went on about, then as luck would have it they smiled upon her and brought not only her missing convoys but her poi, the mysterious Shino, Naruto Uzumaki directly into her grasp. And the best part? He was going to do all the hard work himself, all she had to do was secure the trucks and take him down. XXX. Despite reciting the mantra over and over to try and help calm himself, Ishibashi couldn't help but feel the sense of impending doom that washed over him every time a figure or shadow passed the security door, keeping him trapped. Why were these people doing this? What had he and his brother done to deserve what they did? Gods, he could still hear Biku screaming, them laughing like old demons. How they mocked that he'd be next once the Ripperdoc was ready again. The worst, though, was the look Biku gave him as they showed him off. That sad look in his remaining eye, as if he blamed himself for getting them in this situation. A sudden beating on the glass made him flinch and look up to see, to his horror, that the bearded beast had returned. Time to wake up, meat. The man chuckled, beating on the door a few more times before it slid open. Old Kaiser's ready to get his hooks on ya, he he he. The name made a shudder surge through the monk. Barely anything human remained within that monster. He was more machine than man, not even hiding it under the synthetic flesh like many of the gangoons in Maelstrom, and proud of what he did, happily telling them about how he lost his license and how he was wanted for murder, for how he went above and beyond what his patients wanted while poking and prodding them. As the beastly man stomped towards him, the harsh red optic glaring down at him with a cruel smirk on his bearded face, Ishibashi closed his eyes. Tayata Om Bakans Maha Bakans Radza Samudgate Soha, he chanted softly, earning another harsh laugh from the man who brushed off his spiked synth leather jacket. Pray all you want to your weird gods, monk, ain't shit gonna change what's about to happen to ya though, now on your feet. Royce barked. When he didn't immediately move to stand, he growled and kicked the monk in his chest with his metal-studded boot, knocking him roughly against the panel of servers behind him. Te ata o om bakans, Ishibashi continued, the feeling a sharp burning pain in the back of his head and tears fall from his eyes as he coughed once. Bakans maha. Another kick, this time to his side followed by a laugh, interrupted him, and knocked him to the side holding what felt like a cracked rib as breathing hurt. B bakans, Radza, cough saw Samudgate Soha. Kneeling down next to him, Royce rested his elbows on his knees and looked the monk over. Tough one huh? He snorted with a little laugh. Your pal was tough too, right up until the cutting started. The gangoon reached out and clenched the front of his orange robes and snatched him closer, his bare arm getting cut and scratched by the various pieces of plastic and some broken glass. He tried that little prayer to stopped pretty quick once the doc popped his eye out of socket. Then again it could have been the shit we pumped him full of. Ishibashi trembled again in the monk's grip, which got yet another dark chuckle from the man as he let go and stood up to tower over him. Hey gonks, come grab this meatbag and get him to Kaiser. When no one walked in, Royce growled and kicked the monk once again in the stomach, knocking the air out of him. Wait here, I'll be right back. Kurt, Lars, what the fuck's taking you so long? Ishibashi wheezed and gasped for breath, each inhale sending agony through what he suspected were broken ribs. But all he could do was lay there in a broken pile and watch as his tormentor angrily stopped towards the door and slid it open while growling under his breath. Hey you gonk fucks, where the hell are you? He roared as he stepped out into what used to be the factory's protein lab, where they used to grow and cultivate the single-cell organic protein used in the food they packaged. Now it was the best place for the Kaiser to play Ripperdoc. Hey, where'd those two fuckers go? He yelled out. Several others scattered around the floor turned towards him and looked confused. Seeing how useless they were, the beast of a gangoon growled and slammed the door to the old server room shut. God fucking damn it, why can't anyone fucking do as they're told? All at once, the factory went dark. The hum of the lights and some of the remaining machines that still drew power all went completely silent all at the same time, getting dozens of groans and even what sounded like a teenage girl's squeal. Who squealed like a bitch? Someone yelled out into the darkness, earning chuckles. Yeah, who's the pussy? Listening to the gonks across the pitch-black room start arguing and though accusations, Royce growled and brought up his holo, contacting that Zarya bitch who was connected to the place's subnet. Hey, what's the fucking issue with the power? He snapped, knowing Brick had left a while ago after their argument and taking control while he was gone. I'm sorry. That message caught him off guard. Sorry. The fuck you mean sorry? Bitch, did you have something to do with this? He snapped back to back as he fumbled through the pitch-black room and, you the reason the emergency lights are out too. She didn't answer but he could see that she hadn't cut the connection. Answer me. I'm sorry, he made me do it. Who? Several screams echoed in the darkness all around him. Flashes of deafening gunfire momentarily lit up the room and he was able to catch glimpses of his figures dressed in black wearing white masks taking down his people. Royce felt his pulse quicken and drew his pistol, his newly installed reflex tuner activating as he aimed and took a shot into where he thought he spotted a white mask. Goddamn you Zarya, who is this? He roared, firing into the chaos before him. After a few shots were fired blindly he felt the hairs on the back of his neck stand on end as a voice whispered in his ear. It's me. What felt like a sledgehammer hit him in the back, knocking him forward where another blow to his chest made him stumble back with a wheeze. He stopped to cough a few times and held his chest as he quickly raised his pistol and spun around. Who the fuck are you? He could still hear gunshots and the sounds of a struggle further off but couldn't see anything in the darkness around him. Show yourself, pussy. Why? Came another whisper, so close he felt the breath on his ear and turned, firing wildly in that direction. In the muzzle flash, he saw one of his gang members fall to his own bullets but didn't care and started turning, frantically aiming in all directions. Another blow to his side struck him, knocking him off balance and into a piece of old factory equipment that he didn't know the name of. The only thing he knew for certain was that the glass screen attached to it shattered when his shoulder went through it. Royce staggered to his feet, holding onto the equipment as he fired a few more rounds into the dark. Are you scared, Royce? The voice sounded further away, almost like an echo from another room. That pistol's shaking pretty hard. Fuck you. Another shot then a click, making him curse and fumble through his coat pocket for a spare. The empty one clattered to the floor and he struggled to slide in the new one. Why don't you stop hiding and face me? He screamed into the silence, only then noticing just how quiet it had gotten. There were no more yells, no more gunshots, no sounds of things being broken or thrown, just the pounding in his ears as his heart raced accompanied by his own panicked breathing. Where are? Over here. He turned and fired as soon as the whispered voice came from beside him, only to feel another sledgehammer blow to his back that nearly took him off his feet and sent him staggering away from the now broken piece of equipment. How does it feel, Royce? To be so weak that you can't even defend yourself. There was a whooshing sound and the man cried out as the front of his synth leather coat was slashed, just barely slicing his chest open where there wasn't any chrome. No wonder you torment monks, you're too much of a pussy to be in a real fight. Fuck you. Ah. The ganger nearly dropped his pistol as a blade was suddenly stabbed into his left arm just below the shoulder, cutting several of the lines and wires he had running down his coat sleeve for his SmartLink, which started giving error messages to his soft. He could still move his injured arm, so he switched his gun over to the left one and reached over to hold the badly bleeding appendage with his right. You call this a real fight? He spat, holding the gun to his side while slowly moving around to try and put his back against the wall. He had some black lace in his pocket that should help, he just needed to get somewhere in. Over here. Shirking away from the sudden scream right next to his ear, Royce raised his gun only for something to grab his wrist and pull his arm forward. Shing. The burning pain in his left hand was excruciating, as if someone lit it on fire. The grip on his arm vanished and the man grasped at his hand instinctively to quell the pain, only to find a wet stump where his hand used to be with several wires and tubes jutting out. Ah, my hand. He cried out, sinking to one knee as he gripped what was left. You fucking pussy. You cut off my hand. Consider it a small mercy, the voice hissed in his ear, making him freeze as he felt the flat end of a cold blade touch his cheek, still slick and wet with his own blood. I could do a lot worse to you. With that, the blade was flicked up, severing part of his ear and getting another grunt of pain as it fell down to the floor below him. Gritting his teeth, the man could only freeze as the tip of a weird knife appeared from the darkness, his optics scrambling to adjust to the complete darkness of the windowless factory floor. It touched the bottom of his chin and prodded it upwards until he looked up into the darkness in front of him. Royce, do you have any idea just how lucky you are? The voice questioned ahead of him, sounding both angry and amused at the same time. The Gangoon made a little angrily noise but didn't open his mouth to speak with the blade still jabbed into his chin. The monks you kidnapped, the one you tortured both body and soul. After all you inflicted on him, do you know what he did? When he didn't answer, he felt the tip of the knife dig into his face, and know what? He saved your lives. This time the voice came from behind him but the knife never moved. I was already planning on visiting you tonight and when I met him and found out what you did, I planned on this going a lot different. If he could just get the right leverage, he could take the guy in front of him down. The one behind him would have to come next but Royce was confident he'd have the advantage despite everything that had happened. He just needed to wait for the right time, just let him run his mouth some more. But you know what? He could barely speak due to whatever kind of shit you chipped him with and he asked me not to kill you. Your lives were worth more to them than all the pain and suffering you caused, that is a good person. Suddenly they heard a deep humming sound and the large industrial lights above them flashed to life. The familiar hum of the various machines still looked into the grid returned as his optics adjusted once again but was a much smoother process than before. The fuck are you? Royce whispered, looking up at the blonde man staring down at him, his left eye slitted and partially red while the other was blue. He didn't wear any armor or gear, just a pistol strapped to his thigh and a pouch on his leg with a simple black shirt and pants. He didn't look like any gonk he'd ever dealt with before. Movement to his side caught his attention and carefully, Royce turned his head slightly to see what it was, hoping it was one of his boys about to lend a hand. Instead his heart sank. All around the factory floor his boys were laid out cold, many of them battered and broken but still alive but what broke him was the number of masked men standing around, sitting on top of the machinery, all wearing the same clothing and all wearing a weird animal mask with long ears. And flowers. Painted. Oh shit. Unlike them, I'm not a good man. The blade flashed and all Royce could do was scream as his face was sliced open by the man. No, by the Shino. Fucking. Fuck. He bit out. The fucker nicked a link up in his optics and caused a feedback spike in between his soft and wetware. What the fuck is the Shino doing here? Why the fuck is he fucking with us? I want you to remember this, Royce. You're only alive now because of that man. Through the feedback affecting his optics vision, Royce could easily see the tip of the Shino's blade pointed straight at the center of his optical implant. But the next time I run into you, the Shino trailed off but Royce understood the threat that was left lingering in his mind as the blade was put away. Let's just hope for your sake we never run into each other again, The blonde man intoned before a blow to the back of his head sent the bearded ganger slumping to the floor. XXX. Still laying on his side in a fetal position, Ishibashi slowly inhaled as he managed to catch his breath and fought off the urge to cough which would send jolts of pain through his ribs. When everything went dark and the sounds of gunfire erupted, he wasn't sure what was going on but a tiny shameful part of himself hoped that they were killing each other. For a moment, he'd even thought that maybe this was his chance to try and escape but a bullet struck the door moments later and put a stop to those thoughts. Tayata om bakans maha bakans radza samudgate soha, he whispered as everything got quiet again. But his heart started racing once again as the door to his prison opened again. The battered monk clenched his eyes shut and braced himself, expecting another brutal kicker to be ruthlessly manhandled again by his tormentors. The steps got closer and Ishibashi curled into himself as much as his broken ribs would allow. Awaiting more pain, he heard the sound of something moving and flinched as a hand touched his shoulder. Hey, can you hear me? The voice was soft and kind unlike before, making him open his eyes cautiously to see a blonde man looking down at him with concerned blue eyes. Can you move? Painfully, but yeah, he could. They hadn't broken anything else despite threats and taunts that they would do so. Why yes, he answered, staring up at the man who smiled at him. Who are you? I'm Naruto, your brother sent me, he replied while slowly reaching out and offering the man his hand. Come on, let's get you back to them, okay? As he said that, Naruto moved and slipped his arm around the monk to help him stand, making his ribs protest the movement. Are you hurt? Hearing the genuine concern from this stranger, Ishibashi felt tears welling up in his eyes and wrapped his arms around him. It's just my ribs, he sniffed as Naruto awkwardly patted the sniffling man on his upper back, avoiding his ribs. Thank you. Naruto took a breath and gave the monk a moment. Come on, don't thank me yet, he said softly, pulling away from the man who wiped his face with his robes. Thank me once I get you out of here, okay? Once the monk was ready, he led him out of the server room that was his prison and out onto the factory floor where his tormentors were laid out in various places on the floor. Are they dead? Turning back to the monk, Naruto saw that he was looking at Royce, who was lying in a small pool of his own blood from the gash across his face. No, your brother said you wouldn't want that. Yeah, he barely heard the monk's soft voice as he turned away, still holding his injured chest with one arm and looking at the various gangoons lying on the ground around them. But, I'm not so certain about that anymore. XXX. With a clone taking care of getting the man to safety, Naruto and the rest of his clones made short work of the rest of any Maelstrom gangoons that were still hanging around the factory. Now that he didn't have to worry about the prisoner, they tore through the chromed-up booster gang like a raging fire. By the time they got to where they stored the missing Militech trucks and cargo, most of the remaining gonks had run away upon realizing just who they were up against. Area's clear, boss. One clone called out as they checked around to make sure there were no hidden surprises left behind by the gangoons. Looks like they've gotten into the cargo though. Several other clones were spread out around the trucks, looking them over and being nosy while he huffed and sat down on a small black crate with Militech printed on the sides. Hey, what's so special about this stuff anyway? Another clone questioned as he searched a larger crate and came up holding a dark green ballistic vest that kinda reminded him of a Chunin vest and a bulky green helmet over his head. Half the gangs in Night City have this stuff, don't they? Some have better gear. Another laughed before something slammed into the back of his head. Ow, hey you fucker, that hurt. You nearly destroyed me. Looking down, the clone's eyes went wide. Is that a grenade? The guilty clone chuckled, holding a crate about the size of a toolbox under one arm and another grenade in the other. Sure is. He laughed. Payback for stealing my takedown earlier. He then roared back and threw another. You took too long. The clone shot back, ducking the incoming grenade which struck an unlucky clone behind him in the eye. Its head snapped back before he vanished in a cloud of smoke. The box he'd been carrying fell to the ground and hundreds of bullets spilled out across the floor with a clatter. You wanna fight, punk? Bring it on, ya bastard. Naruto looked at his clones and sighed as they charged into each other with a battlecry only to vanish in a plume of smoke as he dispelled them. Even his other clone's sweat dropped at the influx of memories before getting back to the task at hand. The trucks were hidden away here out of sight inside the All Foods shipping warehouse, the most obvious place to hide them now that he thought about it, but before he called Stout, he wanted to know what was so special about this shipment. Well, that and see if there was anything here that he might want for himself. Ah, hey boss. He turned towards the voice and spotted the one who called him, hanging out the back of one and waving at him. I think you should get a look at this. XXX. The massive garage doors started rolling up. He could see several shadows below the door and hopped up on a stack of Militech crates to wait for them. As the opening got high enough, the Corpo soldiers rushed in, guns at the ready and fully armored in their black and yellow gear. Area clear, ma'am. One of the men called out. Naruto had to admit that they were covering each other pretty well. Militech really put some training into these guys. Here's your convoy, he yelled out as the woman walked in, flanked by a young man who looked like she should be in an office instead of being surrounded by, well, this. Mostly accounted for anyway. So it is, she hummed, walking closer with her arms crossed as she scanned the area around them. Thinking about it, Maelstrom should have been her first thought when it came to who could have managed this, a known booster gang chipped with millions worth of black market military-grade chrome. Standard convoy security wouldn't have stood a chance. Turning to Julian, she motioned towards the trucks parked haphazardly around the warehouse. Check the trucks and crates, I want a full account of the remaining inventory. The young man nodded and started typing on his data slate, walking past the corpo as he pulled his personal jack from a slot in his arm and connected it to the slate before scanning the nearby boxes. As this was happening, Naruto noticed the corpos spreading out around the room, seemingly checking crates but never turning away from him. He kept looking towards Stout, who seemed to be taking a moment to look at one of the nearby gangoons while her own thugs positioned themselves around him. Stout, he called out, slipping down from crate and onto the floor, you got your convoy back, how about your side of our deal huh? He really had the feeling that he knew what she was about to do and hoped he was wrong. Oh don't worry Naruto Uzumaki, she replied to him, a self-satisfied little grin on her normally serious face, I'll keep my end of the deal and end our operations hunting for you. He raised an eyebrow and grinned, good, he gave a little laugh, I thought you might do something like try to stab me in the back or something. The blonde chuckled again only to see several lasers pointing at him from the soldiers surrounding him. Yeah, about that. Narrowing his eyes, Naruto fixed the corpo with a stare. Stout, he growled out in warning only for her to give him a look down her nose. I said I'd stop hunting you Naruto and I intend to keep my side of the deal. She stalked over to him, hands on her hips, but the Shino. Seeing the look he had when she said that, Meredith smirked, you should always read the fine print when making deals merc, any gonk worth their chrome knows that. I'll keep that in mind. He grumbled out, frowning at her, but before you do something stupid, I suggest you think twice. Oh. He nodded slowly, I have a feeling that something pretty important is missing from that truck, the blonde told her slowly, almost mockingly as she looked between him and the indicated truck. Humoring him, she contacted her tech over here Hollow, go scan the truck he mentioned. Yes ma'am, ending his scan early, the tech hurried over to the next truck and entered into the trailer. So, he trailed off, placing his hand in the way of one of the lasers and watching the tip of his ginger glow slightly as he slowly made his way towards her, whatcha want to do while we wait? She crossed her arms, how about we talk about your body doubles? He blinked, yeah, that's what really got my attention, we got footage of you and your little squad at the old Power Corp building. The little disappearing soldier trick, that is something else but I ran some tests with a V and every single one of them were exactly the same. Height, shape, movements, gear, weapons, and everything down to your voices were exactly the same. She mused, looking at him like he was the most interesting subject she'd ever seen and not in a fun way. Naruto didn't know exactly what to say and had to admit that he was a little stunned that Shed went so far in her investigation. When he didn't immediately respond she snorted, it's fine, our techs will figure out how that works after they get a change to look through your chrome. Not a good idea, Stout, Naruto warned again. And why's that? He only grinned and looked pointedly at the truck where Julian was quickly climbing out, nearly tripping as he almost dropped the data slate he was balancing on the climb down. That looks important, he loudly whispered as the tech all but sprinted towards her. I'll be right over here, when you're done okay? She narrowed her eyes at the man and signaled for her team to keep him in sight as he sauntered over to the crates he'd been sitting on before and turned to the techie as he came up next to her, what did you find? Ma'am, the prototype harpoon weapon systems, all of its technical data is missing. He reported quietly to her, eyes wide and looking nervous. The harpoon was a supersonic missile made to knock out heavily armored vehicles, ripping through a basilisk's armor like it was plastic. A targeting soft controlled the missile and was programmed with a targeting bias for the cockpit. Meaning they blatantly were made to kill the pilots and ensure they had no chance to eject, which was technically a war crime. The technical data that was missing would contain damn near every bit of information on the system, its soft, ice, almost everything needed to build one or hack one. The data, she snapped, turning to stare him down with ice-cold gray-blue eyes. What did you do with it? Naruto was back to sitting on top of the crates, innocently swinging his foot as she started towards him. Oh, don't worry about it, I made sure it's in a safe place. She stalked even closer to him as he grinned, all ready to find its way onto the net. Just like that, he snapped his fingers to drive home his point. And I can have you shot and put an end to this farce. She snapped her own fingers in return. Just like that, around them, her men kept the blonde in their sights ready to open fire at the first sign of trouble. I guess you could, he hummed, looking down at the multiple red dots moving around his torso, not that it would do you any good. That's so. Raising his finger, Naruto placed his finger on one of the many lasers pointed at his body. As he slowly pulled away, the glowing dot followed his fingertip as he pointed towards the high rooftops above them. Bringing it towards her, Meredith had to hide a twitch of nervousness as he aimed his fingertip towards her like a pistol. Bang! He grinned as he said that, miming a gunshot in slow motion. The lasers on his finger vanished. It only took her to hear her assistant gasp to know and look down. There, bouncing around on her chest was the laser. Cute trick, she sniffed, keeping a calm demeanor while the twitch of her lips betrayed her nervousness. Her shoulders and legs' visibility tensed as well, her body's flight or fight kicking in. That's not the half of it. He nodded his head towards the roof and she narrowed her eyes. Looking up, she spotted one of the familiar masked men, one of the stolen Militech rifles in his arms aimed right at her. Glancing around, her heart dropped as she started to notice more and more of them hidden around above them all. Stout stared him down for a few moments, raising a disbelieving eyebrow when he suddenly winked. Her men must have glanced up as well and noticed them as well. Contact. She was startled out of her stunned confusion as one of her men cried out and fired at the men above them and instinctively ducked for cover. Ambush. Another cried out, sending a burst of gunfire at one of the new attackers, taking down his squadmate across the garage. His weapon was suddenly knocked upwards, sending another spray of gunfire into the rafters about them and punching holes through the sheet metal roof with ease. Within less than a second, the corpo's legs were swept out from underneath him and he only got another split second to register the masked man above him before a single strike knocked him out. Looking around towards each of her men, Stout felt a surge of adrenaline flow through her as she grabbed her sidearm, a sleek but standard Militech issue Lexington pistol. Call him off. She barked at him, leveling the weapon at the blonde's head. He shook his head slowly. Don't worry, they won't kill him. The woman growling, most of her men now laying on the ground with only one or two struggling against the attackers but were clearly vastly outmatched. If anything, they were toying with the soldiers. I said, call your men off. She snapped again, lowering her aim slightly and pulling the trigger, intending on putting a few rounds through his leg. Just as the weapon went off, Julian appeared next to her, hand clasping around her wrist like a vice as he forced her aim away from the blonde. The bullets from her pistol ricocheted off the floor and into a wall pretty close to another one of the masked men who ducked out of the way with a yelp. Julian! She exclaimed, her shock rapidly turning to anger as her assistant betrayed her. Moving to strike him with her free arm, aiming for his throat for a quick and brutal takedown, she was in no way prepared for her young, fresh-faced techie to counter each and every one of her blows as if she were a recruit fresh into training. He reacted to each strike with shocking speed, disarming her of her weapon with alarming speed and countering everything she threw at him with a blow to her torso or back. Militech armor could withstand most calibers found on the streets of NC and had decent enough shock absorption when it came to physical blows, but each strike from the techie felt like a hammer blow. Enough already. Naruto yelled. Meredith let out a heavy, shaking breath as her treacherous assistant disengaged and shoved her back, taking a moment to kick her pistol away from her and towards the blonde. Julian, what the fuck are you doing? She growled out, one arm reflexively covering her stomach which had taken a couple blows in the struggle. The man stayed silent but a chuckle from the blonde merc made her glare in his direction. How the hell did you plant him in my team? She demanded, glancing around and feeling her heart drop as she realized all her hustle was down and standing over them were the Shino's masked soldiers. About that, Naruto mused, walking towards her with a finger in his ear. The earlier gunshots had made ears start ringing and that shit was annoying. Julian was it. He questioned only to roll his eyes when she glared at him before reaching down and scooping up her pistol that had been kicked towards him. Well, he didn't turn on you if it makes you feel any better. She looked at him like he'd grown a second head, cutting her eyes to the techie a few steps away from her, then looking back at him with a deadpan stare. If this isn't a betrayal, then what is it? Looking over to the techie, Naruto nodded, still playing with her Lexington pistol. Eyes still narrowed, Stout looked between them for a moment before flinching as the man was engulfed in a plume of smoke. What the foo? She trailed off, eyes going wide as another masked man walked out of the rapidly dispersing smoke. How the, what, how? How was this possible? That had been Julian, but he sounded like him, looked just like him. How in the hell did he do that? What the hell was that? What kind of chrome did that? The main question you should be asking now is what happens now, Stout, the ninja told her calmly while stepping towards her with her own pistol in his hand. She wanted to step back in fear, but her own corpo pride forced her to stand tall, still clutching her stomach. If he was going to flatline her, she'd face it with her head held high if nothing else. You can spin it however you want, but I held my end of our deal. I found your missing trucks, secured them, and not once did I plan on turning on you. He stated while coming to a stop just out of arm's reach in front of her. But, I had a feeling that you would try something, even though I honestly hoped that you would have some honor about all this. You know the whole, I scratch your back, you scratch mine, thing. She fought back a gulp as he stared at her with an almost cool yet oddly pitying gaze. Guess it's my own fault for thinking that you wouldn't plant a knife there instead. So, what happens now? She bit out after a moment, making him give a little grin at her repeating his words. He crossed his arms and looked a bit thoughtful. Well, I see one of two things happening. One, you report all you know about me and I spread this data as far as I possibly can. I don't see either of us really enjoying that though. And the other one. You find a way to end that investigation about me. I will make sure the world doesn't get a sneak peek at the entirety of Militech's cutting-edge war crime and you don't end up the center of a corporate clusterfuck. He put his hands behind his head and chuckled. I won't act like I know how you corpos do things, but I do have an idea about what happens to those that leak information, and this would be pretty career-ending, wouldn't it? She didn't answer, but the look on her face said it all. Not only would classified data getting out be a career killer for her, but it would most definitely end with her taking an indefinite leave of absence, something she's done to multiple gonks who tried to sell company data without clearance to do so. What's stopping you from releasing the data anyway? The same thing stopping you from forwarding the data you gathered on me. He replied, pressing the button to release the magazine from the gun and ejecting the bullet loaded in the chamber before smirking, and who knows, maybe we'll even come to an even better agreement in the future. Like what? She raised a disbelieving eye, then said, you scratch my back. Almost mockingly, only for him to nod. And you scratch mine, Naruto finished, offering her the pistol back. Ishibashi wasn't sure how long he'd been asleep. The last thing he remembered was stepping outside of this hateful place and feeling a sense of relief as he stepped out into the night air. Like his entire body relaxed all at once. A sting from his forehead quickly reminded him that he had fallen down and passed out. Hey, you awake back there? It took him a few moments to realize he was being carried on his savior's back. What happened? He questioned, wincing from his tender ribs as he shifted a bit. Where are we? Little China. Pretty close to my chum's place, he answered, several people giving them odd looks as they passed by on the sidewalk. They probably were an odd sight to see, a monk being carried piggyback down the street. Your brother should be here already. The man hadn't been unconscious for long. Naruto had crossed Watson in near record time via roof hopping and had jumped down to street level once the monk started stirring. He didn't want the man to wake up while he was in mid-jump and freak out. Thank you. Naruto barely heard it with all the noise around them, car horns, loud music and gonks all around them as they neared the Gamora strip club across from Misty's place. It's no problem. I won't be able to repay you, he said slowly, almost nervously. I don't think I could ever. But the blonde just shook his head and cut him off. I didn't help you because I want something. He slowed down just outside of Misty's Esoterica, which was closed at this time, but with Jackie's bike still parked by the front, he knew they were still there. Think you can walk? When the monk said he could, the ninja knelt and let the monk ease himself off his back, wincing at any sudden moves. Ishibashi steadied himself with his savior's help and thanked him softly once again. If you don't mind me asking, he sounded even more nervous than before and looked at the man with confusion. Why did you help me? Naruto just looked at him for a moment then smiled. Because it's the right thing to do. The monk stared for a moment and looked down, even more confused than before. I see, the number of people in Night City that would help someone just because it was the right thing to do, was minuscule compared to just how many lived here. When a hand touched his shoulder lightly, Ishibashi looked up again to see him motioning towards the door. Let's get you inside, okay? He agreed and the pair of them walked inside, the door automatically opening for them as they neared. The inside of the shop was the same as ever, the smell of incense filling the air with a smoky floral scent that seemed to perk the monk up a bit. Misty was at her counter as they walked in and stood up upon seeing them. Hey Naruto, Bix seeing to your friend in his clinic, she told him before noticing the other monk trailing behind him. You must be Ishibashi. You know me. The woman nodded. Your brother has been asking about you. She pushed away from the counter and walked around to him. Biku is with the doctor, but you can see him now if you want. He nodded quickly. Please. Misty reached out slowly and took his arm softly. Come on, I'll take you to him. She then looked towards the blonde apologetically. Sorry Naruto, you can wait here if you want. Only family can go in there right now. Doctor-patient rules and such. It's fine Misty. Jackie here. He's gone to grab a few things for me. I'm staying to help Vic tonight and he's gonna stay too. She started to lead the man towards the back door. Oh, and I got to meet that guy you told me about. Had a great talk with him. She missed the look of confusion he shot her as she turned and led the monk out back, leaving him wondering who she meant. Ah, hello again dear benefactor. Naruto jumped away and spun around from the sudden voice next to him, nearly crashing into one of Misty's shelves to his right. How the hell did you get there? He gasped, leaning against a small display of small painted skulls and candles that rattled when he knocked into it. Looking at the other monk, who gave him a serene smile while looking at him through his yellow glasses, Naruto stopped the rattling skull next to him and straightened himself up. No seriously, I didn't see you there. Or sense you there, but he left that part unsaid. Forgive me dear benefactor, I did not mean to cause distress. He bowed his head slightly. As for how I got here, well, I walked over. Naruto's sweat dropped, unsure if he was screwing with him or not. If he was, then the man had a hell of a poker face. Your friend has taken good care of my companion here and the owner of this establishment. She too seeks enlightenment. It is rare to find a fellow traveler seeking to aid others along their journey. How is he? Biku will survive dear benefactor, but I fear his soul will forever be burdened with what happened tonight. The monk's face fell, his serene smile turning to a small mournful frown. But when they are ready, I hope to take them on another journey, not for enlightenment but to heal their souls. Well, they deserve better than what they got. The blonde sighed. He remembered seeing the operation room while clearing all foods. It was like a scene out of a horror vid or something he expected to see in the village's TI department used to extract intel. Let him know that I did what he asked, as much as I wanted to. I didn't kill any of them. The man bowed his head again. That will ease some of his burden, dear benefactor. I thank you as well. But do you not wish to tell him yourself? I'm nearly out of time. The blonde shrugged. Been going non-stop for a while and used up a lot trying to get here so fast. And I'd hate to cause a panic with everyone else around. I'm afraid I don't follow. Naruto grinned at the man and winked. I'll see you around Chum. A plume of smoke engulfed him and quickly dissipated, leaving a shocked monk standing alone inside the shop, his mouth agape and his glasses nearly falling from his nose. XXX. In all her time with Militech, Meredith could look back and count all the times she was in a situation like this. Granted, she was usually the one holding all the cards, so being on the other side of this situation was a new and rather unpleasant experience for her. The look on his face annoyed her to no end and the temptation to snatch her pistol back and shoot him was strong. But she knew she'd be dead long before she managed to rack the slide and aim, either by his hand or by the masked men around them. Fine, she huffed, reaching out and taking hold of her sidearm. I'll uphold my end of the deal. Just know that if you fuck with me and that data hits the net. She took a threatening step forward and fixed him with her best glare with less than a foot between their faces. I will end you if it's the last thing I do. Considering that you're the one that tried to fuck with me first. He shot back, leaning forward to return the glare with just as much heat as her own with no trace of the little grin he had before. You just concentrate on your end of the deal and I'll handle mine. How does that sound? Stout narrowed her eyes but bit her tongue, holding his gaze for a few tense moments before looking away. Fine. The words tasted like poison as she backed down and he allowed her to snatch her gun away, her corpo pride bruised after today's events. At least I don't have to worry about the convoy anymore. So long as the missile system is safe, then the rest can be written off. Naruto watched her expressions change, pride, anger, annoyance, and finally acceptance as she jammed the handgun back into her holster. His own glare disappearing as he leaned back. Good. I'm glad we can work together with this, he said with a grin on his face that made her roll her eyes. You know, if you keep scowling like that, your wrinkles will get worse. The woman tensed, her eyes going wide then narrowing. Her grip around her weapon tightened for a moment as the temptation to shoot him grew stronger, but like before, she knew he'd beat her to the punch. Was he trying to provoke her or something? Instead of falling for it, she let go of the gun and fixed him with an unamused glare before turning to walk away. Fuck you. She heard him snort at her response and chuckle, with that attitude. You wish. Fuck it, I'm shooting him. Whirling around, she grabbed her sidearm and racked the slide smoothly thanks to years of practice. Bringing the gun up, she aimed, planning on shooting him one way or another only to freeze. He was gone. Spinning in place, she looked to where the rest of his men were and felt a chill run up her spine as she realized that they were all gone, leaving her the only person left standing in the middle of the shipping warehouse. XXX. Damn, it's getting late, Naruto mused as he left through the open garage door that Stout and her corpo hustle came through, sweat dropping as he found himself standing in the fenced-in parking lot in front of the All Foods convoy. Had been this close to where he started and he'd spent all that time scouring the entire factory looking for it. Oh well, he also found the monk and got him out safe, so it wasn't like it was a wasted effort. Speaking of which, he continued, strolling towards the gate and noticing the large Militech AVs parked just outside and blocking the road. I should give Jackie a call and see how the other guy is. I'll call him on the way. Heading over to where he parked his bike next to the apartment building beside All Foods, he stretched, leaning back with a groan while rubbing the back of his neck with one hand while mentally going over his list of things he needed to do. Naturally, he needed to give Jackie a call and see how things went at Vic's. Gotta get him something as a thank you too now that I think about it, he chuckled while stepping around the large Militech AVs and heading towards his bike. Jackie was a good dude, wonder what I should get him. He needed to pay Regina back too. Her info was spot on, and from what the old man had said, she seemed to be alright. Unlike a certain big-eared cheapskate gonk, he snorted at the thought. Kirk was an ass, more of a loan shark than a fixer, and if he heard that the man was tricking people into opening gigs with him, he wouldn't be too surprised. As he sauntered along, he let his mind wander a bit and thought of all the decent folks he's met in his time here in Night City. When he first woke up on the streets, it seemed like the only decent person was a single EMT who went out of her way to stop a random gonk like him from bleeding to death on the sidewalk. Those first days living on the streets really made him hate NC. Then he met some new folks, Rico, Cammy, Mama Wells, Pepe, Jackie, the Padre, Sid and Amy, Panam and the Aldecaldos, and more recently Randall, David, and Gloria. There were more too, but they all made Night City seem so much more bearable. Maybe they weren't all exactly good people, but they were decent as far as he was concerned and made Night City a lot more enjoyable. Ooh, this'll be the first time I've rode my bike this late before. Grinning even wider with the thought. As fun as it was during the day, it would probably be even cooler at night with all of the city lights. I think I'll cruise through Westbrook and check out those holographic fish and trees they have after sunset. The hell? Naruto's eyes widened as he stopped in front of where he had parked his bike, at least where he had parked it. Someone stole my bike. He choked out dumbly while staring wide-eyed at the empty spot next to the building, between a stack of water-damaged cardboard boxes and a trash can with several bags of trash stacked around it. He took back all he thought before. Fuck this goddamn city. XXX. Hours earlier. XXX. The plan had been simple. After locating the bike the client wanted, Sasha would keep track of it until it stopped while Kiwi would link back up with them locally just in case they needed a netrunner for security. Sasha could have pulled double duty via the net, but that would eat up twice as much RAM with her cyberdeck having to juggle multiple programs at once. When Kiwi slid him the deets on what they'd found, that the gonk who had the bike was a solo meeting with Militech and looked like he was running a gig for some corpo, Dorio had an idea. While the gonk was busy running his gig, why not clep the bike while he was distracted? Naturally, Rebecca didn't really vibe with the plan. She'd been hoping to get into a scrap, but Maine had to agree that it was a smarter plan and had less of a risk that the bike got damaged. It was almost too damn easy. The only issue that made him uneasy was that the gonk motherfucker parked the damn thing in probably the worst fucking area he could've. Not just outside of a booster gang's hideout, but fucking Maelstrom's largest squat. If they were noticed by those assholes, then the solo would have been the least of their problems for sure. But oddly enough, the place was quiet for the most part. He and Dorio snatched the bike and loaded it up with Rebecca running security and were gone in less than a couple minutes, heading to where Pilar was waiting to run a full scan of the bike to take care of any trackers. Hey El Capitan, sorry for the late call, Maine called out over the holo, with a smirk plastered across his face as sat in the passenger seat of their borrowed Villefort van. A Columbus V something or another freight van with heavy-duty suspension made to haul serious weight, but we got hold of the bike, what's the deets for delivery? He glanced over to Dorio behind the wheel and caught her eye, winking at her as she drove. Haha, no worries on the time chum. I eat, sleep and breathe biz. Send a picture for confirmation and I'll slide you the deets. Maine did so, snapping a quick shot of the bike strapped down in the back of the van with Rebecca sitting against the side pouting. Ha ha, I knew you wouldn't disappoint. The fixer laughed while wagging his finger happily towards the screen. She's a real preem beauty huh, can see why the client wants it so bad. Sending you the deets now, the man's eyes lit up and Maine soon got a notification from his own holo. Client will meet you at this location, wants to see his new baby in the chrome. No trouble with the pickup. Nah, no trouble at all, he snorted, thinking of just how easy it had been. The bike had no security whatsoever, just parked in an alley all alone. Yeah, it was next to a Maelstrom Gangoon's hideout, but they didn't have any trouble with them at all, almost like they hadn't even noticed they were there. That's what I like to hear, chum, he nodded before crossing his arms, but I gotta ask, what's with the little one? Maine flipped his visor down and eyed the gremlin pouting in the back for a moment and shook his head. She's pissed that the job went so smoothly, he told the fixer, which made the girl grumble in the back, think she was hoping to scrap with the guy who had it. Ah, the man deadpanned, having heard of the girl's explosive personality. Well, the bike's in one piece, so it's for the best in my book. Once I get word from the client, I'll send the green your way. On and before I forget, client said to tell the security that Ramos sent you and they'll let you in. Later, with that, the fixer ended the call. Got the deets on the client's location, he told the pair. Well, head that way once Pilar does his thing. Don't wanna give the previous owner a chance to track this thing down. Wouldn't be too bad if he did, came Becca's reply from the back. He could see her grinning at the idea. Been way too long since we've had a good scrap. Let's not risk getting the bike shot up, Becca. Dorio said with an amused smirk on her face as she headed towards the spot where Kiwi and Pilar were waiting for them. It wasn't too far outside the NID, so they were pretty close. Maine nodded in agreement, gigs paying a premium for its condition, bullet holes cut that premium damn near in half. He adjusted the seat a bit and got comfortable, an easy gig with easy eddies. That's Nova with me. The gremlin blew a raspberry, crossing her legs and arms while looking at the bike strapped in place next to her. What's so special about this old gonk-ass bike anyway? There wasn't a lot of space with it back here, but luckily for her, she didn't take up a lot herself, so she could move around pretty easily. Hell if I know, Corpo Gonk's got more eddies than brains, but hey, I ain't complaining, Maine snorted. If he wants to park it in some showcase garage and jerk off over it, then so long as the funds clear, he can be my fucking guest. Ew, the chem-skinned girl stuck out her tongue at the idea. Man, I've seen some weird ass shit, but yanking your crank over a bike is definitely some corpo shit. She continued to look over the bike and noticed some weird marks on the rear fender. Yo chums, check it out, bike's got a tramp stamp. XXX. Of all the things that could have happened. Naruto grumbled angrily as he jumped from rooftop to rooftop, leaving the Northside Industrial District and heading into Kabuki. Hindsight was a bitch alright, and looking back, he was a fucking idiot for leaving it just sitting there like he did. Should have left a clone with it and I wouldn't have to deal with this, he continued to berate himself before stopping just past the massive highway that snaked its way through and around the entire city and let out a tired, aggravated sigh. As annoying as it wasn't the end of the world. After all, he knew where it was, kinda. The seal he placed on it wasn't exactly perfect, but he could use it to track the thieves down. It wasn't exactly a tracking seal like he remembered from Konoha. He'd been working on recreating that with little to no success, but he came up with something a lot cruder and simpler. It was a simple concept really. The seal contained some of his chakra, enough that he could focus and get a feel for its location. A seal like this would be absolutely worthless back home, as anyone with sensory training would be able to feel it, but here. Well, if anyone in Night City could use or sense chakra, then he really wanted to meet them. Squatting down on the edge of the rooftop, Naruto spit over the edge and looked out at the city before him. It was really late into the night, and despite that, Night City was just as busy and alive as ever. Below him in Kabuki, all he could hear was the drone of car horns, electro-punk, and gunshots with the roar or AV thrusters in the sky above him. Naruto closed his eyes and opened his senses more, getting a feel for his seal. Man, if Iruka was here he'd already be on it, he thought with a little laugh. Imagine the punks that stole it riding down the street and out pops Iruka screaming at them with his big head. He laughed hard at the mental image and had to plop down before he fell. You never did teach me that trick, did ya, sensei? He asked softly, looking up at the sky where he could barely see any stars. Wonder what you'd say if you could see me now. Or knew the things he did. Shaking the thoughts away, he got back to the task in hand and concentrated to find that his seal was still a ways away, across the river towards the city center most likely. Well, let's get a move on then. He stood up and stretched, giving the area around him another once over and noticing a white AV speeding towards a massive building nearby. Trauma team, clearly visible from the red glowing holographic display on the side of the vehicle. Oh yeah, that's the med center, he mused, thinking of someone else that worked there. Wonder what Gloria's up to. Shaking his head again, the blonde rubbed the bridge of his nose. He had to focus. Bike first, David's hot mom later. XXX. With the bike secured and the client's location picked in on the nav, the only thing to do now was for Pilar to work his magic, making sure there weren't any surprises in store, especially trackers. They wouldn't want the previous owner tracking it down too easily. Well, at least until they got paid, and the bike was the client's problem. The meetup was at one of the many no-tell motels that littered the city. With the earlier change of plan, they decided to just meet there. The tech would run his scans inside the van while they kept an eye out. Yo Maine, don't worry about a thing. The lanky man grinned while adjusting the visor over his eyes. I'll run a quick diagnostic, scrub any soft that shouldn't be there, and you're good to Delta. The back door to the van slammed open and Rebecca hopped out, her newly named shotgun guts thrown over her shoulder as she stretched. The girl looked around and saw Kiwi leaning against a Galena hatchback with a smoke. Sup Kiwi, you been here long? The net runners shook her head. Not too long. Everything was clear, so I left as soon as you guys were done at All Foods. She shrugged and blew a cloud of smoke through her mask. After a moment she looked down and brushed off some ash that stuck to her long red coat. My gonk bro didn't try anything, did he? The shorter woman questioned, her face twisting to a look of disgust as she shot the man in question a look as he climbed into the van with his scanner. Hey, I heard that half pint. Pilar stuck his arm out above the open door and flipped her off. Still pissed at him for earlier, she stepped over and kicked the door, slamming his arm against the frame with a thump. Wasn't talking to you. She growled. The man yelped and snatched his arm back inside while the others just ignored their antics. Nah, after I threatened to short his chrome last time he left me alone, she mused, making the other girl smirk at the memory. While they stood nearby and kept an eye on their surroundings, Maine had moved around to the back of the van and was talking to Pilar as he worked. So what's it looking like? The techie was rescanning the bike with a disbelieving look on his face, tapping the side of his custom-made scanner that had the soft to pick up multiple different transmissions. Something's gonked choom, scanner ain't picking up anything but the basic shit. Meaning? The merc questioned with an annoyed look. He wasn't a gearhead and didn't have a clue what basic soft came on bikes. Gonk that had this didn't have any security on it, doesn't even look like he had a tracker on it either. There's no way. This bike was worth a lot of scratch and he was just cruising the streets without anything keeping it from being taken. Pilar ran the scan again. Don't know what to say, bossman. Diagnostics on the onboard system says everything's Nova. Only one issue I can find with it. Upon seeing the questioning look, the techie reached over and tapped a keyhole. Gonk only did one thing right and took the keys with him. Clients can deal with that. They were getting paid just for the bike. They weren't going key hunting either. Running one last scan and you're good to go. Kinda annoyed that this is all there was. The man chuckled, waving his chrome hand at the scanner, then flicking one of the cables attaching it to the bike's diagnostic port. But hey, I won't say no to Easy Eddies, we are still hitting up turbos after. Maine leaned against the edge of the door, his large frame making the van shift slightly, and held out a fist. Gotta keep up with our new tradition, don't we? Hell yeah we do. The lanky merc did the same and bumped fists just as his scanner finished, the holo flashing an all clear to him. Well shit, and here I thought no one in NC was dumb enough to leave their shit parked without security. He shrugged and disconnected from it. All good to go here chum. Nova, Delta on over to Turbos and grab a beer, we shouldn't be too long. Ya ain't gotta tell me twice. He just grinned and wrapped the cord around his scanner, sliding out of the van and whooping all the way to his beat up my, hee hee, here I come ladies. While the others groaned or shook their heads at him. Rebecca flipped him off as he peeled off, his own hand popping out the sunroof and returning the gesture. I'll see you guys later, Kiwi told them while climbing into the Galena, its little engine coming to life with a whirl. Gonna stop by Turbos tonight right? Maine answered while leaning down to see the woman as she rolled down the window, dropping off the package to the client should NT take more than an hour, two tops depending on how gonk the traffic is. XXX. Beep blinking at the notification as he sailed through the air between two towering office buildings. Naruto accepted the call upon seeing Jackie's name. Hey Jackie, what's up? Nothing much Holmes. Gonna chill with Misty tonight at the shop. She's helping Vic with your monk and offered to keep an eye on him. Over the holo, Jackie looked like he was lounging back on one of Misty's harmonization chairs again. Misty said you stopped by with the guy's brother after I left. Thought you were gonna hang around for a while. Landing on the rooftop, Naruto stopped to get a good look over the edge to plan his next jump. All the other buildings past here were a lot smaller and he didn't want to misjudge his jump, again. I wish, he huffed while stepping onto the ledge. There was a surprisingly strong wind this high up that was buffeting his clothes. If his holo hadn't been connected to his chrome, he doubted that he would be able to hear the other man. Everything Nova with your gig, something happened. Jackie gave him a concerned look. Man Jackie, Naruto groaned and pinched the bridge of his nose. He had thought about letting him know what happened earlier but remembered an earlier convo between them. Jackie was impressed with his new wheels but had told him more than once to get some anti-theft soft that would alert him as soon as something messed with it. It wouldn't stop it from being stolen exactly but he would be alerted as soon as they tried tampering with it. So while I was handling my gig, some gonk stole my bike. He finally grumbled, looking pointedly away as if that would stop him from seeing the other man's vid feed. Oh come on Holmes, what about that soft I told you about? Didn't it alert you? When Naruto continues to try and look away sheepishly, Jackie covered his face with his hands. Really bro, you forgot didn't you? The guilty look on the blonde's face said it all. Yeah I did. He admitted after a moment, but I've got a tracker on it and I'm heading that way. You gonna tune him up? Depends on any damage. He leapt from the rooftop and continued towards where he could feel his seal acting like a small beacon. I mean they're still getting an ass kicking either way but I don't know just how bad yet. XXX. Crossing the bridge from Watson and over to the city center there was a distinct change in atmosphere compared to the streets of Watson, especially the closer you got to Corpo Plaza. Cops had a strong presence there and actually patrolled the area around here, mainly to protect their Corpo sponsors' assets but some rare cops do actually try. And that was where the client was sending them, right on the edge of Corpo Plaza at some high-priced Corpo apartments where you paid for a half of a floor, not an apartment. Wonder what a place here runs ya? Dorio wondered with a little whistle as they waited for the light to change, and luxury de la Maine taxi cab cruised past them, the AI-driven car expertly navigating the road better than most drivers could. A place here. Maine chuckled while nodding at the towering building. Gotta have fat stacks of eddies and little sense to get a pad here. Becca popped up between them, checking out the building in question while straddling the front fender of the bike. Bet we could have a hell of a party in a place like that. The idea of bringing the gonks at Turbos and annoying the shit out of these corpos making her grin harder. What the? Jumping at the grinning girl's sudden appearance, Maine started to smirk at the idea of pissing off a bunch of rich corpos by throwing a wild party but quickly noticed where she was sitting. Yo Becca off the merchandise. She rolled her eyes. Oh come on chum, I ain't hurting nothing. She grinned and wiggled her ass a bit on the bike moving slightly in sync with her. If anything I'm adding a little more value to it. Between his girl snickering at the gremlin's antics and the gremlin herself, Maine just shook his head and looked back out the window. Just don't do that when we meet the client. She stuck out her tongue. Fine but the gonk doesn't know what he's missing. It wasn't long before they were able to get through the rest of the late-night traffic here in the city center. The fact that the building they needed to get to was just across the street made the wait seem even longer, but they couldn't just go blazing across the busy intersection no matter how much Becca whispered for Dorio to do so, like the little devil on her shoulder. I thought we'd never move, said the gremlin groaned, having given up on being a bad influence and laid on the floor next to the bike, her shotgun under her head like a pillow. Sorry Becca, missed my turn, gotta loop around and wait again. Dorio's statement made the girl whine and pout. Up front, the woman shot Maine a grin and winked, making him hide a snort as they pulled up to a gated entrance. After a moment Becca looked up and realized she had been tricked, hey. Making the two up front laugh. Heads up, girls were being scanned, Maine suddenly warned. Sasha just called, she's in position via the net. Gonna add you both to the call so you can hear her. Hi chooms. Don't mind me, just gonna piggyback off of ya till I can access the building's subnet. Oh, and I just saw building security scan ya. Looks like they're sending out a comms drone. As if to prove her point, a small round drone with two high-speed fans mounted on each side zipped over to them from over the gate. It was a simple Zetatech communication drone from the looks of it, a flying glowing camera lens with a speaker built in. What do you want? A bored voice droned through the drone, followed by the sound of a buzzer with an announcer's voice yelling, game over, you lose. Fuck you gonks distracted me, the fuck you want? Was that King of Chromefist 8? Becca questioned in the back, leaning between them again. It was, before some random gonks showed up at. There was some shuffling and the sound of something falling. It's 12:20 in the fucking morning, why the hell are you here? Ramos sent us, Maine called out, slowly playing a chrome finger against the gremlin's head and easing her back so he could see. The guy on the other end lost all interest. Weirdly enough, the way the drone moved looked like it rolled its eye, or lens somehow inside. Hold up, forwarding you to someone else. Before the audio was cut, they heard him mutter under his breath, someone who gives a fuck. Who the hell's Ramos? Becca asked with Dorio shrugging in return. Both looked to Maine questioningly, who shrugged as well. No clue, the client said to security. Maybe it's his name. The man supplied, not really caring so long as they paid. The lens flashed a few times and glowed again, this time a much more chipper man's voice called out to them. Hello there, are you here for the delivery marked? Mr. Ramos. The drone bobbed a bit back and forth as its AI-controlled navigation script was disabled and another party took control. Yeah, bike. Oh yes, please follow this drone through the parking structure and I'll meet you at the elevator. With that, the screen flashed and the gate blocking the entrance opened up with several dim lights along the wall lighting up. They followed the drone down the ramp and entered what was probably the cleanest parking area they'd ever seen. No graffiti on the walls, no trash strewn about, only the odd tire mark here and there marking the pavement. Maine whistled and nodded towards a car as they passed by. Check it out, that's a Herrera Outlaw. While he wasn't a gearhead by any means, he, like many others, could appreciate the Outlaw. After all, it was one of the most exclusive and sought-after cars that was actually street legal. They passed several more cars, mostly executive models and a few sports cars while following the drone, which soon led them to a large elevator where 3 men were waiting. 2 of them looked like you typical overworked, underpaid maintenance gonks. Both smoking cigarettes with annoyed looks on their scruffy faces and wearing the same tan overalls. The other stood out from the others, young and annoyingly chipper, a baby corpo, the kind that thought they were going places and wouldn't last a minute outside of their own little tower. Dorio pulled the van over next to the waiting group and parked. Maine gave her a look and climbed out to meet them while she only opened her door, weapon in hand just in case. Behind her, Becca grinned and gripped her shotgun, ready to back her chooms up if push came to shove. Until the eddies hit their account, they wouldn't risk being screwed over by some outside party. Hello there, I take it you're the gentleman who handled the request. The younger man questioned with that same chipper tone as before while looking up from his data slate. Yeah, he was interrupted by the corpo, who looked away and back to the slate he held, which irritated the merc. Good, I'm so glad you were able to handle it in such a prompt manner. If you don't mind, these gentlemen will handle the unloading. As he said that, the 2 men leaning on the wall behind him huffed and started over. Maine eyed them for a moment and stepped away from the door as one started putting on a pair of gloves while the other wheeled over a long moving cart. Managed to grab it without any damage, the merc told them, not letting them know just how simple and easy the job went, as requested. My employer will be happy to hear that. The two guys popped open the back door to the van and flinched back at the sight of Rebecca grinning at them, shotgun in her lap right at the edge of the door. Hey, don't mind me, big guy, she smirked at the closest one before stretching her bare legs out like a car and exiting with a little hop. I'll get out of your way. Becca, don't do that to the poor gonk, Sasha giggled over the shared comm as she watched the gremlin purposely brush against his crotch as she passed. You're gonna give him a chub. Rebecca only grinned as she stepped around them and joined Maine, who shook his head with a small smirk of his own. They watched as the bike was expertly wheeled out of the van and carefully lowered onto the cart before the young corpo turned away from his data slate. My employer would like to have a word with you all. It seems like he wants to thank you personally, he stated, somehow sounding both annoyingly chipper and annoyed at the same time. The crew shared looks but nodded. The client had already paid and didn't gain anything by screwing with them. In fact, it would piss off their fixer. While not all fixers cared about their runners, El Capitan took pride in his representative on the streets. If a client flatlined a team after completing a gig, then that made him look like a gonk punk. And as a fixer, you lived and died by your representative in Santo. XXX. Each resident shares a few common areas within the building. There have been complaints in the past, and as such we can't simply push the bike there. Their baby corpo explained on the way up to their client's floor. Dorio had taken it upon herself to subtly restrain Becca by draping one arm around the smaller girl's shoulder while leaning against her, pinning the gremlin to the wall while Maine stood in front of them. Please let me shoot him just a little bit. He won't shut the hell up. I don't fucking care and I hate his voice. At least let me kick him in the sack. Come on, Dorio, please. No can do, Becca, sorry. The larger women had the decency to at least give her an apologetic look. Becca, ya gotta cool your chrome. I feel ya though, this gonk likes to hear his own voice. I can hack his chrome and short circum for ya. Do it. Chill you two, let's just meet the client and delta the fuck outta here so we can get paid. After what felt like an eternity of corpo yapping over equally trashy corpo elevator music, the doors opened up. Maine let the gonks go first, followed by the corpo, still running his mouth about something. They'd already stopped listening, to be honest, and were having their own convo via holo. So why bother with this chump anyway? Fixer has the eddies, let's just delta outta here and hit the bar. Clients loaded, always a good idea to cozy up to a gonk with more eddies than sense. Might even get another gig from later. As if to prove his point, they entered into an extravagant glass hallway with streams of water running down the walls into a pool that ran the length of its base. Maine gave her a little smirk over his shades. Told ya so. Mr. Northam is on his way now and is very excited to see his latest acquisition, the assistant told them as the two workers wheeled the bike down a bit further, turning carefully into another room and out of sight. No doubt he'll want to show off his collection. This is a rare opportunity for you. Not many people outside of his circle get to see it. Becca flipped him off from behind as they strolled in after them. The room had to be larger than all of their apartments combined. From their spot in the open doorway, the edgerunners couldn't help but stare and feel very out of place. Halfway across the room, the two workers pushed the cart across the polished stone-tiled floor followed by the baby corpo, but they didn't pay them much mind at all. It was the collection they stared at. Think the gonks overcompensating for something. Arranged in a neat row along the far wall were several showroom-quality racing bikes covered in sponsor decals from both big and small corporations alike. Behind each one was a matching jumpsuit mounted on the wall in a glass case with a helmet sitting on a shelf next to it. Impressive, isn't it? The young man asked as he motioned to the room with one arm, sounding like he'd said this more than a few times. Mr. Northam has a passion for racing. His grandfather won first place in the Reno Sprint back in '43 and again in '46. He would won again but was sadly unable to finish the next one in '49. Why not? Dorio asked, deciding to humor the gonk despite not giving a shit in the slightest while the bike was being carefully picked up and lowered onto the floor. Because he died 20 feet from the finish line, they looked over to where a small spiral staircase was tucked into the corner of the room, almost hidden and out of sight where another man was walking down quickly. He was dressed in what had to be the loudest black and gold paisley blazer known to NC with completely gold sleeves that seemed to glitter in the light. He was surprisingly young with gelled strawberry blonde hair and wore golden aviators over his eyes. Okay, maybe this gonk ain't worth a connection. Give him a Santo special. B. He looks kinda familiar, I wonder why. D. Just bear with it, might as well finish what we started. The man quickly made his way over to them as they spoke and thrust his hand out to the much larger merc with a grin plastered across his face. You have no idea just how excited I am about this, he stated while Maine awkwardly shook his much smaller arm. Lame Northam, a pleasure I'm sure. Maine cut his eyes over to Dorio who rolled her eyes at the gonk's words as he stopped and almost skipped over to where the two workers stopped what they were doing so that the gonk could look at it. What a smug cunt. Oh, I've been dying to get my hands on this bike for years, the man continued as started to climb on only to stop short and grimace. On second thought I'll wait to sit on it. Don't want to get anything on my pants, he sighed before walking around it to inspect the thing some more. Did you know that this is the last functioning Harlan Dawson of this model that's not already a part of another collection? Rebecca huffed loudly, so what? She groaned dismissively while walking a little further into the open room with her arms behind her head. What's so great about it? This model was a limited production and was featured heavily on the Annihilator movie franchise, the man explained, which made the gremlin look slightly impressed. She was a fan of the action in those old vids, but that was more Pilar's thing. Many of them were ruined during the production or lost to time. Wanting to speed things up a bit, Maine stepped over towards the man. Your appreciation is Nova, but how about letting El Capitan know how much you appreciate it so we can get paid? Lane clapped his hands and nodded. You got it, Choom. He chuckled while pointing his fingers at him. Give me a minute to give him a buzz and I'll make sure you get paid. As a matter of fact, I'll even throw in a little bonus. Won't say no to a little extra scratch. His eyes widened behind his shades as he received a notification on an incoming transfer from the gonk. An extra 9K, but what's the catch? He doubted it was out of the kindness in the gonk's heart. No catch, I honestly expected you to take a lot longer with this gig. I'm leaving Night City for Europe in. He stopped for a moment, checking his holo. A couple of hours and I never thought I'd get to see my collection complete before leaving. The man turned and grinned at the bike for a moment, and when I'm back, it'll be cleaned up and restored back to factory standard and showroom quality. Now if you don't mind, I'll give our fixer Choom a call and let him know. Lame motioned around the room as he did. Feel free to look around, I have a lot more in my collection aside from these. I'll only be a moment. Why do I get the feeling he only wants to show off his shit? Got the same feeling myself, babe. Glad it ain't just me. They hung around and waited for him to finish the call. The two workers got back to work moving the bike into place next to the others along the wall while the assistant got a call of his own and left in a hurry without a word. Maine stayed where he was talking to Dorio while Rebecca walked around with a bored look on her face while checking out what else the gonk collected. What's the big deal with all this shit? She grumbled to herself as she paced over to the racing bikes. Not like that shit's real. Core rig that shit all the time and not even in a fun way. They didn't even look badass either. Wonder what else he's got. You don't seem too impressed, the man joked, finishing his call while looking at the shortest of the three who had stuffed her hands into her coat pockets and went back to staring around the room with a bored expression. Behind them, Maine's eyes lit up with a transfer from their fixer. Nah, never really cared about him, she admitted with a shrug while Dorio bit her lip and Maine shook his head. While the other two were keeping a professional air about them, both felt exactly the same as Becca. The girl turned, scanning the other items in the room. Bikes are more my gonk brother's thing and, her eyes widened into their surprise, the girl took off like a shot. Hey Becca, what are you doing? The two lovers glanced at each other then back to their Choom, who was staring at a display case mounted on the wall containing a highly customized M76E Omaha Tech pistol with a poster of Lizzy Wizzy holding the same weapon. Liam stepped over and saw what she was excitedly looking at and smirked. It's the real one, just so you know. No way. She gasped. What's so special about it? Dorio asked as she joined them, only to be shocked when the girl spun around with stars in her eyes. This is the iron used by Lizzy Wizzy when she robbed that Biodyne factory years back. The girl gushed. They stole over like 1,000 different implants and gave them away to whoever wanted them for free. The robbery in question happened several years ago and was considered one of her more controversial performances, where she led a group of armed mercenaries and took full control of the factory live on Hollow. No cop or corpo soldier would dare hurt or kill the star, especially live on the air, so she was able to get away without any trouble. Many accused it of being faked and that she bought them and paid for the renovation that occurred afterwards, using the fact that the corporation never tried to press charges. Others say they ignored it because the entire thing gave them a ton of free publicity. The corpo nodded. Indeed it is. After the heist she had what I think was her greatest show and she gave them away to lucky fans at no cost afterward. It was great. The girl shrugged dismissively while looking over the display, but her next concert in '71 was on a totally different level. Blew all the others out of the water with that. I mean, she zeroed herself on stage, got a live 5-hour full chrome body replacement, then got up and sang Restart Reheart Repeat as soon as it was done. Both Maine and Dorio could only stare at the gremlin, who was excitedly going on about the mega star with stars in her eyes as she studied the display, then looked around and gasped at seeing even more Lizzy items scattered around. You collect stuff from Lizzy Wizzy too. You join her fan club. XXX. S. Guys, I'm not the only one hearing this, right? Thank fuck. Thought I had suddenly lost it or something. D. Guys, don't make fun of her. I'm loving this adorable side of her. B. Shut up. I can hear you gonks. D. S. So do you guys have meetups or something for your fan club or what? User. B has left the call. S. I like Lizzy too. Hey, tell her to join again guys, I'll play with her some 4 a.m. I don't think that's. D. Delicate weapon would be better. S. Ooh yeah. It makes me wanna die, I wanna die. You said I ruin your life. User. M has left the call. XXX. Not exactly. The corpo chuckled while still smirking at the shortest merc and unaware of the holocall going on between them, but you could say that she's the greatest thing to ever happen to me. I feel the same way, Liam. Came soft voice from the doorway, a slightly synthetic hum just barely noticeable as she spoke. I was wondering what's taking so long. I see you're playing with your collection again. They turned and were stunned to see none other than Lizzy Wizzy herself walk in carrying a small dog. For someone who changes her looks and style at the drop of a hat, the woman looked just like her posters, skin completely silver with frizzy purplish pink hair that somehow matched her strapless dress and designer handbag. The singer turned to Rebecca, who stiffened. So you liked my Restart, Reheart, Repeat concert better than my earlier shows, huh? The gremlin could only nod dumbly, and Lizzy turned to give the other corpo a little smirk. See Liam, this little girl gets it. The other mercs felt ice run through their veins as soon as the words left her chrome lips. Calling Rebecca short was one thing, but calling her a child was a surefire way to instantly set her off. Before any of them could react and try to stop her, the gremlin had her shotgun in hand and stepped towards the singer, who didn't know how much danger she was in. Both of her crew started to rush her, to stop her from killing the singer as she raised the weapon. Can I have your autograph? She nearly squealed, holding out the gun shyly while the other two froze and stared in disbelief. Ooh, delicate weapon ooh, wah ar and he even wait. A minute. Is that Lizzy Wizzy? Sasha yelled as she finally noticed what was going on, having gotten too into singing with Dorio earlier. Oh, I'm so fucking jealous, Choom. Dwaro, please get an autograph for me too, please. Lizzy gave Rebecca a little laugh and nodded while reaching into her purse she carried just for this reason. Sure, you got it, little girl. She produced a silver marker from her small handbag and quickly scribbled her name along the side of the weapon. Which wasn't the weirdest thing she'd ever autographed before. Sorry about the wait, Lizzy. I got sidetracked, but take a look, my Annihilator collection is gonna be complete. Liam announced while motioning her over to where the two maintenance guys had placed the clept bike with the others. Hey Dorio, don't forget about my oh shit. Seeing the alarmed look on his output's face, Maine turned to her fully with a questioning look. What's wrong? Reconnect now. She called out, getting everyone's attention except for Rebecca, who was gushing over her autographed shotgun. Becca. She finally snapped out of it and turned to her in confusion. Reconnect to the comms, we got trouble. Guys, we got company. She linked a video feed from the street showing a man in all black with a blurry face walking towards the entrance. It's the gonk we stole the bike from. What's going on? Lizzy questioned, raising a delicate chrome eyebrow at the commotion while readjusting her hold on her dog, patting his head as he barked once at the sudden movement. Bike's previous owner has seller's remorse, Maine grunted, not wanting to outright admit to stealing it in front of the singer just in case. He didn't know how involved she was with this but wanted the client to know at least. Looks like he's heading inside the building now. His statement caused Lame to curse softly at first before taking a breath. It's fine, building security won't let him pass, he said reassuringly while Maine was looking at the feed from the street cam outside, a bad feeling forming in the pit of his stomach as he watched the man look up at the building for a moment. XXX. Standing just at the edge of the sidewalk, Naruto stared up at the towering building with a whistle, which attracted an offended sneer from a passing man who quickly turned away after getting a good look at him. He just couldn't help but be impressed. No matter how many times he's seen these buildings, being this close really put it into perspective as to just how massive they were compared to the ones in the village. As close as he was now, when he concentrated he could almost pinpoint exactly where his seal was and it was quite a ways above him. Okay, now I'm really wondering who the hell stole my bike, he muttered after a moment. He'd assumed some gonk took it on a joyride or something or sell it for a quick eddy. Something else had to be up if it was in an upscale place like this. They had trees planted in their lobby from what he could see, actual living trees. The lobby is sleek and minimalist, with a polished concrete floor, wood ceilings, and steel accents. A custom rug covers part of the floor, adding a touch of color and texture. A few art pieces are mounted here and there along the walls, creating a gallery-like atmosphere. The glass doors slid open and Naruto strolled in, looking around as his shoes squeaked a few times on the freshly polished floor until he stepped on the rug. Sitting behind a glass desk and tapping away on a data slate was a young woman wearing a wireless earpiece and a black dress with a badge that read, Amy. Hello miss, he called out about halfway to her desk, which made her visibly sigh but not look up. Name and reason for your visit. She groaned as he stopped in front of her and leaned against it. Looking down, he could see that she was playing some kind of card game. Ah yes ma'am, it's Lin Wang, first name Dang. Naruto nearly bit a hole in his lip to keep from laughing when she glanced up at him but managed to keep a straight face. Looking back down, she paused her game and turned to the terminal, not seeing his trembling lip when she didn't catch the name, and I'm here to pick something up. Not seeing a Lin Wang on the guest book, she drowned while typing away, name of the resident. A Mr. Hugh, Jas I believe. He could nearly taste blood now as she typed it in and slowed down as she got to the last letter, a lot of realization spreading over her face which was too much for him. Cute, she sneered up at him as he laughed, holding himself up on the glass. Don't you have anything better to do than play stupid jokes Mr. Dang? Her eyes widened as she put two and two together. Oh fuck you, Dang Lin Wang my ass. The woman cleared the terminal. Leave before I call security. Yeah about that, Ima need to head upstairs. What you need to do is leave before you do so in cuffs. I'm not playing around with gonks like you, I will have security throw you out. She threatened while crossing her arms and staring him in the face. Come on, wouldn't hurt to let me just head right on up would it? You don't even have to do anything, I can find my own way. She gave him the most condescending look he'd ever seen. First off, you're now trespassing and security is on their way. Second, you ain't worth losing my job over. Amy glared at him with a look that said, try me, while he held up his hands in surrender. Yeah you're right, I'd feel pretty bad if you lost your job for helping me. He grimaced at the thought and scratched the back of his head after a moment. A nearby door slid open with a woman and two men dressed in security uniforms stepped out. Well, looks like I'm doing this the hard way huh? Her eyes widened at the implication as he turned to face the guards. He couldn't be serious. The building was so attractive to renters because of its around-the-clock security due to a long-term contract with a trusted reputable private security company based in Night City. Having security teams on site at all times eased a lot of worries for their tenants who valued their safety as much as their privacy. All right, who's, he leaned and took a quick step back to avoid the first man's swing, a collapsible baton snapping out with enough force that would seriously hurt a normal gonk. Oh shit, you're not playing. The man followed up with another swing, and the blonde stepped back in, trapping the arm under his, then I won't either. Naruto roared back and headbutted him dead between the eyes, stunning the man and disarming him at the same time. Palming the side of his head and bringing it down dead center of the receptionist's glass desk where a spider web of cracks formed with the thud. Oh God! Amy screamed, pushing herself back in her chair as she saw the blood left behind as the guard slid down and slumped to the floor at the foot of her desk. She even pulled her legs up onto the chair when he twitched and screamed. That seemed to push the other two guards to act, snapping them out of their shock at seeing their chum taken out so suddenly. You son of a bitch. The woman hissed, extending her own baton with her partner doing the same soon after before charging at him. Reaching over, he snatched the receptionist's data slate sitting next to him on the cracked table and threw it at the woman, hoping to distract her. The guard's eyes widened but she dodged it easily enough, still giving him enough time to run towards the man, whose arms had nearly doubled in size as thick strands of synth muscle bulged out. He'd seen the damage a set of gorilla arms could do alone, and with a weapon it was just plain brutal. Naruto ducked under the baton soaring at his head to deliver a punch to the guy's stomach, making him gasp and wheeze for breath. A quick elbow to the face followed, breaking the man's nose and sending him to the floor like a broken mech before turning to the other remaining guard. The woman was not deterred by her partner's fall. She swung her baton at his head, but the ninja blocked it with his forearm. He felt a surge of pain but ignored it as he trapped her wrist and twisted, forcing her to drop the baton that clattered loudly on the polished floor as something popped in her arm. You fucking bastard. She grunted, getting an apologetic look from the blonde. Oh shit, I'm sorry, didn't mean to break it, he winced before pulling her to him, which got another pained yelp from her as he trapped her with his arm around her neck. I think it's just dislocated, you'll be fine. She struggled and kicked to free herself as he squeezed and started to black out. Amy hugged her knees tight against her chest, pale-faced and horrified at what she was witnessing. In the scuffle, she finally took a good look at him and felt the beginnings of a panic attack taking hold as she watched the guard's struggles weaken and stop over the course of a horrifying few moments. Their gaze locked and she couldn't tear her eyes away. The breathless gasp, eyes full of primal fear as everything went dark, it terrified her. Naruto felt her struggle stop and loosened his grip. I'm just gonna leave these three here with you, okay? He spoke to the receptionist, who flinched back when he looked up and over to her. He lowered the unconscious guard to the floor and left her between the others. Now you mind if I? Whatever you want, sir. She gasped, unconsciously holding her breath from before. Please just don't hurt me. He held up his hands again in a calming motion. Geez lady, I ain't gonna hurt you. Her eyes darted down to the three bodies then back up to him, clearly not trusting what he said. They started it. She watched him step around the desk and stand in front of the large main elevator and press the glowing screen to call it. Naruto waited for a moment and admired the luxury around him. Even the elevator door had very nice wood paneling to match the ceiling. What's taking so long? He couldn't help but grumble after bit before noticing the screen had flashed red. Unauthorized biometric ID. Oh. That's new. XXX. Liam, what's going on? Lizzy's partially synthetic voice had a twinge of worry in it as the people he'd brought into his home debated amongst themselves. Looking at the bike, her eyes widened. Don't tell me that you. She glanced around and lowered her voice. They didn't steal that for you, did they? Something like this getting out could really hurt her if the culture vultures got a peep of this. The man laughed it off. Don't worry, Lizzy, everything's preem. His voice was confident enough that she relaxed a bit. Like I said, building security will handle it. Besides, they won't even be able to access anything past the lobby anyway. It was then that Maine turned and called out. Gonks headed up. What? Both the singer and her manager yelped, the woman covering her face and sighing at the mess going on while the man stepped over. How the hell? XXX. Let's see, how about this one? Naruto muttered while manually entering 37 on the panel and waiting for the door to close for the trip up. The inside of the elevator was nice as well, keeping the same motif of wood paneling and steel accents. The only thing he didn't enjoy was the electronic hold music playing from the speakers. Turning to the other occupant in the elevator, Naruto winced and gave her an apologetic smile. Sorry about this, but this shouldn't take long, I hope. Should be out of your heart just before the cops show up. Amy glared at him, her fear of him replaced by anger and annoyance as he had taken the guard's handcuffs and bound her to her office chair with her arms behind her back. She stomped her feet a couple times, the cuffs around her ankles clinking together. Ding, the elevator doors slid open and Naruto grumbled. Ah, it's the next one, he exclaimed, once again checking for his seal. He'd already passed it once before, going up to the 50th floor, then again by going to the 25th. Anyone who could see him must think that he was insane, but then again, after the day he's had, it might not be too far from the truth. But hey, this way it's pretty obvious you're not helping me willingly. The elevator doors shut and they settled in for a short lift up. So Amy, how do you like it here? He asked after a moment. Her response sounded suspiciously close to a muffled, fuck you, so he just looked straight ahead and shrugged. Never mind then. The tape over her mouth was a necessity. The way she yelled at him, well, let's just say that he learned some new phrases from this woman. Reaching the 38th floor, he grinned as he felt his seal not too far away and turned to the angry receptionist who stared daggers at him. You don't mind waiting, do you? Her eyes narrowed and he laughed while grabbing the armrest. I'm sorry, couldn't resist. He wasn't going to leave her in the elevator just in case, so the blonde wheeled her out along behind him and whistled at the luxury surrounding him. Wow, this place is, what was it that Jackie said? Swanky. The elevator opened up into a small foyer that led up to a large penthouse-like living room. Everything was clean and looked brand new compared to any other place he'd seen so far. It made his little apartment look like a shoebox in comparison. There was even a fireplace with what looked like holographic flames that changed color every now and then. Oh, and was that an actual kitchen further down? Focus. He had to tell himself before turning to Amy and slid her over to the side. Don't move, I'll be right back. She grunted something while he walked away, then sighed as he turned a corner, leaving her alone next to the elevator. XXX. So do we have a deal? Maine didn't have to look at his crew to know that they were ready to slam it on and go toe-to-toe with the gonk headed their way. Once the corpo found out the guy had gotten past both the physical and electronic security, he quickly started rambling to figure out a solution and turned to them with a question. You can handle this, right? Could he? Damn straight. Would he? How much was it worth? If there was one thing you had to learn about life on the edge, it was never work for free, and he learned that shit years ago. Naturally, Liam was pissy about it, but Maine happily reminded him that they were paid to deliver a certain bike to him, and that was it. If there was one thing the man enjoyed was seeing a corpo squirm like that, getting more and more nervous with each passing minute until he made an offer. Woo, fuck yeah, let's do it. The gremlin was chanting over the hollow and he didn't even have to look at her to know that she was grinning like a lunatic behind him. Might as well, a little extra cred never hurt, Maine agreed with her. They always needed the extra scratch, but before he could start haggling the price, he was interrupted by a harsh bang, making everyone turn towards the sound. The doors leading further into the manager's apartment groaned, the sound of grinding metal and squealing servos ringing out as something was forced through slit between the doors and forced open slightly. Sorry to drop in unannounced, they heard from the other side as a pair of hands slipped through and gripped the door, continuing to force them apart with a sharp crack and a spray of sparks as something broke inside. But I think you guys have something that belongs to me. So the gonks got gorilla arms, the merc thought as he got a good look at the man they'd clept the bike from. Pretty average size, much smaller than him and Dorio, but from his clothes he must be more suited towards covert stealth shit. A good runner always had to judge the situation before jumping, and when going against another edge runner, you had to be even slicker. There was no telling what kinda chrome someone might be packing these days. I don't know who you think you are. Liam snapped at the man from his spot behind the mercs he hired, but if you think you can just break into my home, then you have another thing coming. Hey Maine, scan him and I'll see what pops up, Sasha called out to the merc while piggybacking off his chrome. It was slower than using the building's subnet, but their ice would take too long to break, though safely. Hindsight was a bitch. If she'd known this would happen she would have shredded it a lot sooner and had full access by now. Naruto walked further into the room, looking around and letting out an impressive whistle, ignoring the man dressed in a gaudy gold jacket. You know, I was wondering just who stole my bike and honestly, I just thought it was some dumbass that took it for a joyride. He mused before stopping halfway and looking at all the expensive looking shit all over the room. Most of it he didn't even know what they were to be honest, so anyone want to try and explain things before I say fuck it and just kick every ass here. With that, he took a good look at each person in the room and measured them up. The three closest to him were as out of place here as he was in this ultra-luxe Eddie hole of a suite. The first was a large man at least 3 to 4 times his own size, wearing one of those armored vests popular with a lot of edge runners in the city. From all the seams on his arms and bare chest, Naruto knew this cyberpunk was sporting some chrome aside from his metal-coated fists. Kinda reminds me of B, he thought with a smirk. Then again, this guy was probably twice B's size with all the chrome. Beside the man was a woman that could give Bessie back at the mega building a run for her money in the buff department, standing just a foot or so shorter than the other man wearing a pair of shorts cut off at her thigh and a nice black business jacket with a purple collar. She stared at him with hard blue eyes through her blonde bangs and held an overture much like his own in one hand. The last one made him pause. She seemed kinda familiar but he couldn't quite put his finger on where. She was half the other woman's size, about 2 or so feet shorter than him and looked like all she wore was a black high-collar kitsch jacket, which seemed to be the most normal thing about the girl. Stark white chem-dyed skin, green hair, stunning pink and yellow cyber optics that stared at him itching for a fight, and what looked like one of those large, pink tattoos that could glow under certain light. He knew this girl from somewhere but where? I don't know what you're talking about. Snapped. The other man further past the cyberpunks, bringing Naruto's attention to the two that looked like they should actually be here. The guy looked like one of those spoiled rich gonks from that show Cammy used to make him watch with her, Watson Whore or something like that. Big gelled hair, gold aviators, and bright white pants with that gaudy jacket. But hiding halfway behind the man was someone interesting, a completely chrome woman wearing designer clothing with pink frizzy hair holding, to his amazement, a small yappy dog. He hadn't seen an actual dog the entire time he'd been here, a cat and plenty of pests but a dog. Maybe he'll pet it before he leaves. The blonde huffed, I've had a long day so let's skip the part where you act as dumb as you look. The man gave an offended squawk but was ignored as he continued. I came here for 2 things, my bike, he motioned towards said machine where the workers had stopped moving it but were holding it steady. And kick every ass involved with stealing it. Rebecca snorted, common choom, you think you can handle us? She mocked while showing off her newly autographed shotgun and shouldering it with an equity mocking grin that he returned with one of his own before she frowned. Wait, your face pisses me off, I know you. The others shot her weird looks while the blonde hummed and looked her up and down. I don't know, what's your name? Rebecca, what's yours? Naruto. Naruto Uzumaki. Dorio asked suddenly, making Rebecca look at her with a confused look. The larger woman remembered hearing the name as some other mercs were gossiping like usual at the bar one night, talking about a gonk that pissed off Rogue, the fixer queen herself in her own bar, knocked out her hustle and matched giving the entire bar a one-finger salute. She remembered thinking that here was a gonk that managed to get into the afterlife somehow and, that's what he did. Many mercs would kill for the chance to get in there. He laughed and scratched the back of his head. Hee hee, you know me huh? Rebecca looked confused but Maine's felt ice flow through his veins. He'd also heard the story about what happened in the afterlife but unlike Dorio, he knew one piece of deadly information. The Shino's real name was Naruto Uzumaki. When Sasha brought that piece of information to him at first he thought he struck paydata. There had to be a lot of gonks willing to pay for that kinda info. Then he remembered something. That day in the garage, the psycho that butchered those scavs, those glowing red eyes, somehow both dead and burning with rage at the same time, and how he vanished. Mentally, he pictured an orange mask over the bottom of his face and a old 6th Street plate carrier over his torso and grimaced, fuck. Maine, it's him isn't it? Maine had been adamant that she keep that name to herself, explaining what he'd seen in the past and she did some digging of her own. Coming up on mostly rumor, speculation, and hearsay posted in various dark reaches of the net. One of the wildest was posted by someone with a handle she suspected was related to 6th Street, describing a night during the conflict they had with the Tinos where two of their friends were tortured and burned alive by the Shino. Many called him a gonk and that he was making shit up for cred on the net, but his reply shut them up. He posted pics of a burnt-out shell of a garage, two bodies hanging from chains, and she had to admit that if it was an elaborate joke then the fucker worked hard on it. And if there was even a chance that this guy was the same person, Sasha didn't want her friends to end up in the back of a meatwagon. Maine didn't answer her, already trying to think of a way out of this mess. They had to cut their losses here, let the corpo deal with the fallout here and get the fuck out of here, lay low for a while. Well, since we don't have your bike anymore, you ain't got a reason for us to hang around, Maine called out, suddenly very nervous, which made both Rebecca and Dorio look at him wide eyes while he motioned to the broken door beyond the blonde intruder. We'll head out and let you guys talk things over. It was a half-assed plan and he knew it but hoped it worked. Maybe the guy would respect that it was just a gig, nothing personal among mercs. Babe, what's up? Questioned Dorio over the comm, and feeling weary and wanting to know why he had her input was freaked out this much, as she palmed her pistol. Guys, don't fight him, dude's bad news for us. To make matters worse, Sasha sounded freaked out as well. Both the singer and her manager looked at the merc, Lizzy with shock and Liam with more annoyed anger and fear. What about the deal? You're just gonna leave us here? The girl asked from behind the man who looked like he was torn between pulling her in front of him or running. I'll explain later, just focus on getting out of here. He sent back before looking towards Lizzy. Never agreed to it and we just got paid. What happens after the gig's closed ain't our problem, stated the man. He didn't want to fight this guy. For fuck's sake, after what he did to 6th Street they didn't stand a chance like this. Maybe with the entire crew and plenty of prep work, but not like this. Sorry Chum, not happening. Naruto frowned at his fellow blonde before looking over at everyone else. Like I said before, I came here for 2 reasons. Get my bike, then kick every ass involved with it being stolen. He nodded his head towards the mentioned bike mid-sentence and the maintenance workers paled, quickly taking their hands off his motorcycle. Although I might just let the brat off easy. He looked at the pale-skinned girl for a moment and wondered if he'd seen her before. Don't really wanna beat up kids. Becca. Sasha called out softly, her voice tinged with nervousness. Maine could see what was coming. This exact scene had played out before him far too many times over the last few months and he just knew he had to stop it this time. They were small compared to the Shino and there was still a chance that they could talk their way out of getting a Santo special. First things first, he had to get the shotgun out of Rebecca's hands and oh fuck, she's raising it. You gonk ass cocksucker. She hefted the shotgun up to her side and pulled the trigger, never even giving Maine a chance to stop her. Naruto was already on the move. He'd seen the damage shotguns caused on the streets and at this range the blast would be a devastating pain in the ass if it hit. Her scream of rage suddenly ended with a yelp as the recoil sent her flying backwards. What the hell kinda gun was that? Naruto mentally screamed as he glanced back behind him. Several glass displays were shattered by the shot and the wall shredded. Forget painful, that damn thing would probably kill him. Anyone hit by that at close range would end up as a pink mist for sure. Both the singer and her manager screamed at the first shot and instinctively ducked before trying to scurry away and hide behind the closest solid object, which happened to be one of Liam's prized motorcycles while the 4 mercs fought. The fully chromed singer held her little dog securely to her chest as she hid behind both the bike and Liam, peeking over it to watch what was going on. Becca, you good? Maine called out, reaching for his Militech Crusher shotgun he had holstered on his thigh like a pistol. The gonk was asking for a fight and he planned on bringing it. Shino or not, he wouldn't go down quietly like a punk at least. Nova. Rebecca barked back, gnashing her teeth as she scrambled to her feet for round 2 while Dorio distracted the other blonde. Let's fuck this asshole up. Turning back to the fight, she squeaked just moments before Dorio stumbled into her like a speeding car, knocking her over again in a tangle of limbs as the larger edgerunner tried not to crush her. Sorry Becca, the woman groaned as she shook her head to get rid of the static between her ears. Gonk's a lot quicker than he looks. Her muscles weren't just for show. She could go toe-to-toe with most gonks and win in a normal brawl, but this didn't look like it was about to be normal at all. Not bad at all. They heard and turned to see Naruto aiming the muscled woman's revolver at them, an overture much like his own with some kind of mod attached to it. They froze at the sight but he only grinned. You're pretty good, most muscleheads of fought don't really know what they're doing. He opened the cylinder and dumped the cartridges out into his hand and tossing them to one side, here's your weapon back. Maine followed the pistol as it sailed through the air, taking his eyes off of the blonde for only a moment without even thinking about it. It couldn't have been more than a second or two but his arm was suddenly jerked forward and his crusher ripped from his hands. What the foo? He managed to turn just in time for the blonde to swing the shotgun like a club, knocking the sunglasses off his face and the taste out of his mouth. Maine, babe! Yelled the two girls as he stumbled, jumping to their feet. Rebecca growled as she chambered another shell. I'm so gonna give you another hole to shit out of you son of a bitch. The only reason she hadn't taken another shot was because of Maine's large frame being partly in the way. Maine groaned from the sudden blow and staggered back a step, eyes wide at the sudden burst of speed. He'd been way too far to manage that without Chrome. Shit, guys chipping a Sandy. He frantically sent through his comms, able to relay info with the crew much faster via his neuralware than saying it. Sasha, fry his circs. On it. Naruto pressed the release and let the magazine fall to the floor. So your name's Maine, huh? Stepping on the yellow mag, he slid it across the floor behind him. You know, you guys do look familiar. He trailed off as he ejected the shell and tossed the gun aside. I swear I've seen you before. Maine, move your big ass out of the way. Raged the gremlin, shouldering the only remaining loaded firearm which made both blonde men nervous to have it aimed in their direction. Fucking move. Both men looked at each other for a moment before the larger of the two broke eye contact to quickly get out from in between them. Oh no you don't. Naruto snapped, following the man and reaching up to grab the back of his armored vest by the armholes. The merc had a few 100 pounds on him at least so Naruto had to put his back into it but he managed to shock the man by overpowering him and forcing him back in between him and the girls. A warning message popped up over eye, making him blink. Warning. Enemy hack in progress. Below it was a steadily moving progress bar. Shit, gotta make this quick. He grimaced, not sure what to do about it or what was being hacked exactly. Whatever it was, he needed to stop playing with them and put them down before the hack happened. Pushing the man forward, he planted a solid kick into the man's back and sent him towards the pair of girls, his feet stomping the ground as he stumbled to stop himself from falling face first into the ground. Rebecca kept trying to get a good shot at the gonk but her eyes widened again as the large merc started coming towards her, a shocked look on his face as he stumbled towards her. Oh fuck, not again. She scurried away just as the boss man crashed to the floor where she was moments before. Following the lumbering wall of synths muscle and chrome, Naruto used him as both a distraction and cover against the cannon-wielding kid, not wanting to chance getting his ass cheeks blown off by whatever she had. Seeing her move to avoid being flattened, he moved in quickly to disarm her and grab the middle of her gun. Hey! She yelped when her arms were nearly jerked out of socket, her entire body jerking as she held onto her gun with an unshakable grip. Let go you asshole. He lifted the weapon in an attempt to shake her off but she growled and hung on, her feet dangling a foot off the ground. I said hands off cocksucker. With that she swung her lower body and nailed him in the stomach with both smug satisfaction Rebecca felt ended just as quickly as she landed on the ground with a thud, smacking her head on the ground and slapping herself in the face with her own gun. Ow ow ow, she grimaced not sure of what to rub first as she laid on the ground half stunned. She packed a hell of a kick for a munchkin, not expecting her to hold on like she did. Naruto let go of the shotgun and stumbled back. Just as he did, his hollow beeped a warning as his cyberware was hacked. Aw son of a bitch that hurts. Both hands went to his ears as the audio output to his neuralware squealed, making it feel like nails on a chalkboard in his head. His eye suddenly flashed and its systems reset, leaving him blind in his left eye for just a second. But it was all Dorio needed. Her metal knuckles crashed into his cheek like a hammer blow in what would have been the perfect knockout punch followed by an uppercut that snapped the blonde's head back. Spit left his mouth and the man fell back with his hand over part of his face. All right, the blonde groaned, his voice nasally as he pulled his nose and checked for blood. His eye only stayed off for a moment but now it was back up with a few lines of data loading. Guess it's time to stop playing huh? His hand wasn't bloody so she didn't break his nose but damn it felt like it, but I'll admit, that was probably the best teamwork I've seen in a while. He jumped to his feet and the woman couldn't believe that he shrugged off a blow like that. Clipping your wheels wasn't personal, Dorio grunted as he suddenly rushed her, throwing several jabs and hooks his way. All she had to do was hold him off. Sasha was calling out the progress on her hack so hopefully they could end this quickly. It was just a job. He weaved through her blows, blocking here and there while maneuvering himself around her. Well, sorry if I take it a little personal, he snorted sarcastically. I mean, you did steal it from me. He ducked under a left hook and returned a jab of his own, his cybernetic fist striking her side where her lowest rib was located. When her eyes widened in pain, it was over. He pressed the attack, switching from defense to offensive in a snap. Each blow made her step back more and more. All she could do was defend and hope he made a mistake or Sasha short-circuited his ass, but it felt like an eternity as every time she blocked one spot he struck another. Cover high he stuck low, guard low he struck high. The ninja pulled back and cocked his fist for a final finishing blow, telegraphing his target to Dorio who covered her face and braced. But as he lunged, he hooked his arm around her waist and spun around to her back, trapping her in his grip. The woman knew it was over the moment her feet left the floor and felt her gut twist as she was picked up and thrown backwards in a textbook suplex, landing on top of Rebecca who had just enough time to squeak as she realized what was coming. Ow fuck! Rebecca winced as she tugged her arm free out from underneath the much larger woman and started rubbing her head. Choom, get the hell off me, she groaned while looking at her hand which was slick with blood. Something had split her head open just above her hairline, probaby a part of her chrome. Sorry Becca, she shifted off her back and onto her side with a groan of her own, feeling a warm sensation flow over her lips as blood dripped from her nose. Gonna need a sec, that throw rattled her chrome and she needed a second to get her shit together. Naruto was back on his feet in a flash, looking for the last threat in the room and picking up the Munchkin's gun in the process. Maine hadn't been able to stop himself and had fallen on the cart used to carry the bike into the room, damaging parts of it with his heavy frame and was starting to stand up. I think it's time we call it a day, don't you think? He called out, pulling the action back to look at what kind of shell this beast used and finding a massive metal shell stamped with 4 bore. The sound made everyone freeze. Hey! Becca cried while glaring up at him from underneath the larger woman, that's mine ya asshole. Dorio shifted again and the gremlin groaned, Dorio really, get off of me. The sight of their opponent holding Becca's shotgun made the other woman think twice about any sudden movements as she stared at him. I don't think that's a good idea right now, she grimaced but still tried not to press all of her weight into the smaller merc who groaned loudly and pouted. You know, I used to love getting smashed on the job when I was with the Mox. She deadpanned, wiggling a little before giving up to try and light the blonde gonk on fire with her glare. Really? The woman couldn't help but ask above her before narrowing her eyes, wait, in what way? He, the fun way, she giggled like a manic pixie before shooting her a grin, waggling her eyebrows. Naruto's eyes widened, wait a minute, now I know where I recognized you from. He yelled while leaning the gun against his shoulder and pointing at the gremlin, you're the little Mox that shot me and Lizzy's. He stopped pointing and patted his side, where the girl had gotten a lucky shot in during all the chaos that night. You shot him. You shot the Shino. Both girls' eyes widened at the sudden scream over the comm line as Sasha freaked out. Oh god, he's gonna zero us all. You shot him and, oh god oh god oh god. I hacked his chrome, I am so fucked. People died in NC for reasons a lot more petty than payback and revenge was more than a valid excuse to go after someone in this city. Seeing the look of shock in the micro-merc's pink and yellow eyes, Naruto waved his hand dismissively, don't worry, I'm not gonna kill you or anything for that. He told them before looking at the other merc, as a matter of fact, you gonks can go on and leave now, unless you want to go another round. He'd already kicked them around a little for klepping his bike and it didn't look like they'd damaged it at all so that was enough for him. Nah, we're cool, Maine bit out as he climbed to his feet and wiped the blood from his nose with one hand. Naruto watched him groan and step over towards the girls and kneel down to help Dorio off of Rebecca. Come on babe, let's delta the fuck outta here. She took his hand and winced as he helped her to her feet. You don't have to tell me twice. That throw may have tweaked something and she'd have to go see the doc about it soon if it kept on. Becca you hole. Turning to where her chum had been pinned under her, she blinked as she noticed the spot was empty and spotted Maine pinching the bridge of his nose. Hey Gonk, gimme my iron back. Spinning around, she grimaced at the sight of Rebecca standing in front of the solo with her fists on her hips, glaring at him as he kept her Carnage shotgun against his shoulder while looking down at her with an amused smirk. I just got it and got it autographed. I'm not gonna leave without it. That's so. He challenged, leaning down slightly, or whatcha gonna do munchkin? The thought of patting her head like a child crossed his mind, but he wasn't that foolish. She'd probably bite his fingers or something like that. You gonna? I'll bite your dick off asshole. The joke he was about to say died on his lips as that left her mouth. She hit him with a toothy grin that looked deceptively shark-like and the blonde could only grimace at the thought, shifting his crotch away from the girl. Even the other guys in the room shifted uncomfortably. Finally the absurdity finally got to him and Naruto couldn't help but snicker, which pissed the gremlin off. Hey, I'm serious. You know what, Rebecca? Fine, you can have it back, and you know what? He trailed off for a bit and looked at her team with a little grin on his face. I'll even overlook this whole thing with you gonks stealing my stuff, but only on one condition. The momentary feeling of relief Maine and Sasha felt quickly turned to dread as his own grin started to look a little sinister. As the boss of the crew, it fell to Maine to step up, so he did. Head aching but still held high, he crossed his arms next to his output and grumbled, what is it? He didn't want the Shino pissed at them, Maelstrom or Scavs. He'd take them gunning for him any day of the week over the Shino wanting to settle a score later. He grinned and walked around the girl, who stomped after him with a glare and stopped a few feet from the massive man, grinning up at him, which only made the two lovers nervous. Pretty soon, I'm going to contact you with a job of my own. Nothing too dangerous or difficult, I promise. But you do that and all is forgiven, deal? Maine thought about it for a second, weighing out his options, or lack of, carefully. Agree and they run a gig for the Shino, no telling what for, and there was no guarantee that they'd make it out alive. Say no and, well, the Shino was NC's latest boogeyman for a reason. But then again, maybe doing it would give them some cred on the street. After all, who wouldn't want to hire the edgerunner team that ran a gig for the Shino? Maybe he'd even throw some more work their way and open up some doors for them at the same time. Fine, we'll do it. He shot Dorio a look promising to explain later. Can we go now? Before Naruto went to open his mouth, Rebecca cleared her throat loudly, making him turn to look at her with a raised eyebrow. My gun. She snapped expectantly, holding out her arms as if asking to hold a child. Looking at it then to her, Naruto nodded once, just a moment, then looked at Maine. Sure, be my guest, but give me a second. I need to use this right quick. He motioned to the gun and whistled a little tune from one of those old movies back home as he moved around them and stepped over towards where Liam and Lizzy had been hiding behind one of his show bikes. All right, you two, which one of you is responsible for this whole mess? When neither one looked up, he rolled his eyes and took aim at one of the other bikes, making Rebecca's annoyed look turn into an excited grin while both Maine and Dorio shared a shocked grimace. The blast was deafening. Somehow the sound seemed to be reverberating in his head a lot more than before when it was shot at him. Damn, that actually hurt. He couldn't help but grimace at the stinging sensation, which made the girl laugh mockingly at him, holding her stomach as she pointed at him. The recoil felt like it was trying to his arm off and even knocked him off balance, but the damage it caused him paled in comparison to the damage it dealt the bike. What was once a beautiful arch motorcycle, one of the first models made by the company years ago, was now laying on its side with the entire side of its plastic motor panels shredded with ripped wiring and hoses laying haphazardly all around it. Luckily the thing didn't have any chew in it, or the blonde gonk would have lost his eyebrows in the resulting fireball that couldn't. No, wait, no, please don't shoot my babies. Screamed the man in horror as he witnessed his prized collection price be reduced to scrap metal and Corpo branded plastics. Oh my god, you fucking Neanderthal. Look at what you've done. He heard the shotgun be racked again and cowered as another one. A Yaba Kusanagi Custom CTX suffered the same fate and went from being a priceless set of wheels to a very expensive mess in record time. No. I think we have a winner. Naruto joked after seeing how the man was reacting and turning to the laughing gremlin next to him. Here you go, you shouldn't be needing this again. She took it and held it to her chest, Cops should be here soon. Probably already downstairs, so you guys might want to head out. What? Are you sticking around or something? Becca questioned with a raised eyebrow as she went to join her crew, as if the blonde she was speaking to hadn't just been kicking their asses a few minutes prior. I've gotta have a word with these guys before I head out. Gotta get my bike downstairs too, he replied, fixing them with a stare at the last part. Now go on and leave. I'll catch up with you guys some other time. What he intended to be reassuring sounded pretty fucking foreboding to the others who did as he suggested, leaving the way they came through the service elevator to the parking garage. Now, yes, there's only one thing left to do now. Are you going to kill us? Lizzy asked, her voice sounding more synthetic and full of fear as she stared at the man she'd just watched defeat 3 mercenaries like they weren't anything, all without shooting or killing them. She knew a few edge runners when she went through her activist, terrorist vibe years back, so she knew that he had to be skilled. Was this how her career was going to end, killed by some merc? There was nothing poetic about that. What's with you guys? No, I'm not going to kill you. He groaned. I've said it like twice or something. I am taking that back, and he appeared around the bike and in front of Liam, sucker punching him in the face with a left hook. Unprepared whatsoever, the man fell across the bike they were behind and both went slamming into the ground. Knock his teeth out. Still crouched, Lizzy lost balance and fell backwards onto her ass when Liam knocked over the bike. Bonkers. She cried out as the animal slipped out of her grasp and made a beeline toward the blonde while barking, yapping. Bonkers, no come back here. The superstar cursed Liam in her mind, he just had to steal a bike and cause all of this. The animal leapt over Liam's lower half and sailed onto the blonde's leg, teeth bared and ready to rip and tear the flesh from his leg. Ah, miss. Naruto looked down at the tiny dog as it growled, shaking its head violently back and forth with his pant leg clenched in its teeth. I really don't want to hurt this little guy. It tugged at the fabric and continued growling. She tensed when he leaned down and poked the animal in the side a few times with his right hand until it changed targets and snapped down on his finger. Lizzy felt her stomach drop, expecting the merc to hurt her bonkers for biting him, but the man picked him up gently with his other hand and held him out to her. You mind? She got back up to her feet and quickly accepted her baby back, hugging him to her. Thank you. Lame groaned on the floor laying halfway across the bike, which made her look at him then back to the blonde. Was all this really over a motorcycle? Lizzy couldn't help but ask. Sure was. Naruto sniped as he turned away from the singer and started walking over to where his bike was sitting pretty at the end of the row of show bikes opposite the 2 he destroyed. And before you ask, was it worth it? My answer to that's the same. She cautiously followed after him and watched as he checked over the machine and put a key in it, but why? Naruto hummed and leaned on the handlebar with a thoughtful look, because I made myself a promise that I wouldn't let this city take anything else from me without a fight. He admitted after a moment. He mounted the bike and leaned against the tank with a grin. Lizzy opened her mouth but couldn't find the words to say, her mind conjuring up images of a lone soul facing off against an endless wave or a single match trying to chase off the darkness of a room. You're in for a long fight then. You might be able to hold on the first time, maybe even the first few, but there's always something else just waiting for its chance to take what you have. She said sadly after a few moments and looked at him. His response was to shrug. Then they better kill me, because I'll never stop fighting. It sounded so simple yet, at the same time, it was a monstrous undertaking. Like the match, burning itself out against an impossible foe. You should hurry and get out of here. Liam has trauma team coverage, they should be on the way since you knocked him out. She didn't know what possessed her to warn him, but she knew that Liam had upgraded his policy for the upcoming tour and that this solo edgerunner would probably be shot dead as soon as they showed up. Oddly enough, she felt a sense of relief at the thought of him getting away safely. His eyes widened a bit at the news. They'll show up even if he's only out cold. She nodded, mumbling under her breath something that sounded like pussy, which made him shake his head. Never mind. Anyway, miss, if you don't mind, I'm about to be the cause of bunch more noise complaints. You really don't know who I am, do you? The superstar asked with amusement. And maybe a little annoyance too. She had yet to see someone who didn't immediately recognize her after her full body replacement procedure. She might change her styles and flow when the feeling stuck to her, but no matter what, the masses instantly recognized her chrome with ease. After all, not many were willing or able to undergo the process for one reason or another. Naruto took a moment to turn and look her up and down for a moment, and Lizzy positioned herself slightly to match one of her more popular glamour shots that matched her most recent shoot for the upcoming tour, waiting to get the shocked reaction she was used to. But he only frowned and shook his head, which stunned her. Nope, sorry, but not a clue. XXX. So wanna bet on what's got the assholes here crying this time? Huffed NCPD officer Ernie Novak as he pulled up partly on the curb outside of one of the few legit ultralux apartment towers that actually lived up to its name. His partner, Officer Jeanette Hartwell, sipped her synth cough and shrugged while he put the cruiser in park, leaving the lights and siren off as he did. Who knows what gonked up shit these rich creeps get up here? Probably some high-rent flatbacker kicking it from natural causes, and we gotta take a statement. She scoffed and looked down at the cup in her hand with a curled lip. This synth cough from the precinct is shit. You want good? Then spend your own eddies. The man shot back while picking his up with a smirk and shaking the cup a little. I know I did. They rarely had to actually respond to a call from here due to the on-site security, and most residents got pissy when they showed up. Normally whenever a call came in, dispatch would log it and promptly ignore it. No need to waste the chew budget on something that in-house part-timers would handle right. Should the calls continue coming in, they'd send a cruiser to check it out, and who should be the unlucky gonks chosen to go? The woman's eyes narrowed in his direction. You fuckstick, I thought your synth cough smelled different from mine. She exclaimed. He smirked at his partner's reaction and gave a dramatic sigh as he drank it, while she opened her door. Ain't nothing synthetic in this cup, bitch face. You know what they say, the best part of waking up. She groaned as he sang the last part before cutting him off in a sing-song voice of her own, is spitting in your cup. While climbing out, Novak froze and looked down at his cup suspiciously, which made her snort when she looked back inside. Come on, let's get this gunk shit out of the way. You can wonder if I spit or not later. He flipped her off as she shut the door. He popped the door open and glanced in her direction suspiciously before shrugging and finishing off the rest of his coffee. This coffee was expensive as shit and he wasn't going to toss it. Novak climbed out and adjusted his bulky police vest as he neared her, so no bets on why we're here. Several pedestrians glanced their way before losing interest and continuing on their way. Can't be a resident dying. TT would be all over this before we ever got here. The banana boys aren't here, so no cyberpsycho. It's probably what I said earlier, dead hooker. She grumbled while going over the most obvious suspects. What do you think? She was cut off as their uplink to dispatch chirped and connected. Unit 273, be advised. Trauma team en route to the location. Oh, of course now they show up. Hartwell snapped while throwing her hands up with an exasperated huff before grabbing the mic hooked across her shoulder and changing over to the non-emergency channels where they didn't have to stick to protocol. Dispatch, what the hell? Why'd you send us here if this is trauma's scene? Sorry Hartwell, TT waited till the last second to let us know. You know how they are when it comes to whatever the dispatcher was saying was instantly drowned out by the ear-piercing sound of glass shattering and metal bouncing across the sidewalk, both of which was quickly drowned out by the thunderous roar of an engine. Both officers spun to face the sound and were dumbfounded to see a motorcycle barreling towards them with the rider looking just as shocked as them. Look out! Novak cried out, moving to push his partner out of the way as the bike swerved and skidded to avoid them. The officer ended up tackling her to the ground, knocking her patrol cap off her head as both landed on the ground with a grunt. They heard a yell from the rider, but between the squealing tires and roaring motor neither could hear what exactly was said. You hole? He asked, quickly climbing to his feet and helping her up as well. She barked out an angry affirmative and both were sprinting back to their cruiser. Let's rip that scumbag a new one. XXX. Okay, fuck, that won't a good idea. Naruto cried out as he held onto the throttle for dear life and shook shards of broken glass off him. Running his hand through his hair, he winced as several pieces scratched his scalp and fingers, but the wail of a siren behind him kept him from stopping and only urged him to go faster while taking advantage of the bike's smaller size to slip between any stopped cars. Glancing in his mirror, the blonde solo got a good look behind him and was confused as to why he only spotted one set of lights when he'd been expecting at least several, especially with all the noise and gunfire this close to Corpo Plaza. But he wouldn't complain. It made getting away a lot easier with the one car chasing him. All he had to do was lose them before any of their chums decided to join in. Oh shit. Naruto cursed as a sleek black and white Villefort turned around the corner ahead of him, its tires skidding to a stop as he leaned hard to swerve around it. Watch where you're driving, you, he started to yell as he passed, but through the darkened window, he was sure that the thing was empty. Several people walking down the sidewalks all stopped to gawk at the chase and near collision, but like before, the blonde was intent on making himself scarce. Behind him, the squad car shot past the stopped Villefort, its sirens and flashing holographic panels drawing a ton of attention from the people out and about so early in the morning. They were a good distance away since he'd gotten a decent head start, but there was no telling if he'd run across another parked somewhere or if they called for backup. He smirked and turned left into a narrow alley, hoping to lose them in the maze of massive buildings and busy streets, dodging trash piles and shit. He hit the brakes when a cat hopped down from a ledge above right and landed right in his way. Look out, you little asshole. The ninja reacted in time to miss the animal and braked, but grit his teeth when his wheels skid on some trash and he ended up slamming his side against a dumpster. Hiss! The animal fixed him with the meanest glare it could muster and leapt up on said dumpster and hissed again, baring its teeth at him as he rubbed his leg, which took the blunt of the damage. Yeah, fuck you too. Sorry for trying not to flatten you, Tora-chan. Naruto snapped, calling it the worst thing he could think of for a feline. The alley, while narrow, was still big enough for the squad car chasing him to follow, and looking back, the blonde could see them turning to line the vehicle up to follow. Just stay up there, okay, Tora? He grunted, pushing away from the dumpster while the cat hissed, swatting at him with a paw. Pulling back all the way on the bike's throttle, the tires squealed as he shot down the rest of the alley, leaving a small cloud in his wake before emerging onto another street with a busy intersection ahead. He had an idea. Could it work again? Continuing the chase, he accelerated and swerved into the opposite lane, heading straight for the oncoming traffic, getting several up-close looks at the drivers' reactions as they panicked and slammed their brakes, resulting in a chaotic scramble as a pileup was caused, making him grimace. Some hurled curses his way as he waved through the mess, some of which he hurled back as he passed, but looking back again he saw that the police cruiser was trapped behind the mess. Laughing, Naruto took the first turn he could to break their line of sight on him and shot off down another road, wanting to get out of the district ASAP and doubling back towards Watson. He'd have to go the long way around back to Santo just in case and avoid the area for a while, but he had to admit. That was fun. XXX. Naruto yawned as his tiredness finally caught up to him midway up the short elevator right from the underground parking structure below the mega building where he'd parked his bike and covered it with the tarp he'd gotten to keep it dry if it rained. He wouldn't risk letting it sit out in the elements too much with the chance of acid rain. I'm gonna miss cruising around the city on it, he huffed while puffing out his cheeks like a child. With his last game of chase with one of NCPD's finest, he felt like he should park the Harlan Dawson for a while just in case. All this because of one rich asshole, he thought while going over the last few hours in his mind. It had been such a long day having to deal with Maelstrom, rescuing that monk, handling the Militech situation, and let's not forget about the Cyberpunks that stole his ride. He had something a little special planned for them, something he came up with on the fly and would have to put together, but the thought made him grin like an idiot. The holo mounted on the wall of the elevator flashed a few times, catching his attention. It was mostly commercials, but a banner running along the bottom had a few actual news headlines to look at. Weather. Incoming storm front. Body count lottery 39. Wanted for corporate espionage. Gilchrist, Anthony. Watson whore star faces accusations. I bet it was that weird Julio character with a, what did Cammy call it? A porn stash. He mused while shaking his head at the memory. Every Wednesday night they'd watch that show and he had to admit, he fucking hated it. Drama and hype was one thing, but the entire premise of the show was simply, what fucked up situation can we take too far this time? One episode started off with the star going to a protest against the poor treatment of war vets and ended with what was basically hardcore porn of her trying to fuck her way into some director's new vid. The slow elevator creaked and groaned to a stop with a little jolt that made your stomach twist no matter how many times you felt it. Another moment later and the rusty metal gates opened and the blonde stepped with another yawn. Oh, good morning, Naruto. It was Gloria, standing just outside the elevator next to him, wearing her usual work clothes with her EMT jackets folded against her chest. You're up early today. Seeing the little smile she gave him made one of his own appear on his lips. Just getting back actually, he told her tiredly while rubbing the back of his neck. Had a pretty long day honestly. Everything okay? Naruto didn't know if she was doing it on purpose, but the way she cocked her head slightly to the side with that little concerned look on her face when she asked that made him feel different. If you want we can talk about it sometime, maybe grab a drink again this weekend. The redhead looked away but he could see her face turn red at her small slip up. I mean only if you want to, I know you're probably busy and I'd love to. She was rambling faster and faster the more she went so he cut her off. It took a moment for her to realize what she asked and his answer but she gave him a smile in return and nodded, face still a little red. Good. I mean I'll look forward to it. A moment passed by with them staring at each other with little smiles, until someone cleared their throat loudly beside them. Both turned to see an annoyed older woman staring at them with a pair of older model cyber eyes that seemed to be glaring in both their directions. You mind? She snapped, a cigarette bobbing between her lips as she spoke. You two can stare lovingly at each other all you want but I'm gonna be late for work. The two of them stepped back and let her pass but her words made the redhead both blush and grimace. I got a Delta 2 Naruto. Don't wanna be late either. She stepped into the elevator just as the older woman started repeatedly tapping the panel to go down like it would move faster. Both of them shot her a look but were ignored as the door began to shut. Later Naruto. The blonde couldn't help but grin and waved to her just before it shut. See you later Gloria. He waited a moment and started back down the hall towards his apartment, still tired from the day but now feeling a bit lighter than before as he passed several regulars that would hang around. Some nodded in his direction, having been helped by the blonde in the past while others flinched away, mostly local gangoons that had caused trouble with him in the past he ended up correcting. Hey Mr. Naruto, welcome home. Spotting Randall turning the corner ahead of him, the ninja waved at the disheveled man as he approached and gave the man a friendly slap on the shoulder. Why you were gone for a long time today, AD delivery came for you. Gonk was gonna leave it at your door but I made sure it got to your Dropbox. I appreciate it Randall, he really did, the guy was a good person. Now if only he could get him to feel more confident and stop stuttering completely. Anything else happened while I was gone? The homeless man shook his head slowly and turned to follow him back down the hall, passing several of the man's chums who had all banded together since the blonde had started paying them to deal with the trash and do odd jobs. No, not really. Just the usual. They reached his apartment and Naruto took a few minutes to open up the panel to his drop box next to the door. Inside he found the box and saw it was the stuff he'd bought from Misty's. Oh yeah, he exclaimed, remembering that the girl said that she would have it delivered. Thanks for making sure this for in here, would have hated for something to happen to it. Happy to help. The man gave him a small smile when looked down again. I'll talk to you later Mr. Naruto, got a few things to do myself. With that, Naruto entered his apartment and yawned as the door shut behind him. I'm home, he sighed out to the empty room as he set the box from Misty down onto the desk next to the door and looked at the picture sitting next to the terminal. You wouldn't believe the day I had today. Picking it up he wiped the frame clean with his hand and smiled at it. Some gonks stole the motorcycle Sid gave me and I had to go and get it back. You probably would have liked them. Especially the munchkin, she kinda reminded me of you. Carrying the photo over to his bed and stopping by his little refrigerator for a drink, a yellow and orange Nikola fire and set them both down on the nightstand. Met this weirdo too, her whole body was chrome. Well what I could see was, didn't check to see or anything. He continued while sitting down and taking his shoes off, quickly followed by the rest of his clothes until he wore just his boxers and tank top. Doubt you would have liked her though. Groaning, he flopped back onto the bed and closed his eyes with a deep breath. Good night Cammy, I miss you baby. Beep. Number unknown. Me and Bonkers hope you made it out safe. It took him a few moments to realize who the message was from despite not knowing her name but Bonkers rang a bell. Naruto stared at the message as it popped up in his peripheral vision and just laid there across his bed in shock. The blonde couldn't believe she'd send him a message like this. She witnessed him ruin two of what looked like very expensive bikes, stole one back, and knocked her boyfriend out. That particular thought made him stop. Oh damn, now I feel bad for the dude, he realized while covering his face and groaning. He knocked the gonk out and the poor fucker's girlfriend was messaging him this. Oh god, was that weird chick crazy or something? Well, on second thought she looked completely cybernetic, so maybe she was. He mused before rolling over and pulling his pillow closer. I just hope she isn't a weirdo and starts stalking me. Still don't know her name though. Thinking about it for a few moments, he shrugged and added the number to his contacts, entering in the only name he could think of. Little did he know that he just received the personal contact of superstar sensation Lizzy Wizzy, something many gonks across the world would kill for, and he put it under the name. System message. Unknown number saved as, bonkers.